The previous basket is under review.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Basket Under Review podcast. I am your host, Eamonn Brennan, a buzzer at EamonnBrennan.com. I am back once again with our buddy Tate Frazier from The Ringer. Another episode of our erstwhile college basketball podcast on the absolute best week of the college basketball season. You know, the hipsters try to talk about Champ Week sometimes, Feast Week and Maui and all that good stuff. But let's be real. The best week of the season is here. And we are going to essentially use the process of picking our bracket on air as a skeleton to kind of go through, talk about what we're thinking about with this field and with the teams we think are going to make the Final Four and maybe some upsets here and there. But mostly we're just going to use that format. And I intentionally did not pick a bracket yet. I kind of intentionally did not look at the bracket, in part because I stayed up until like 4 a.m. writing Bubble Watch every single day the past week. And once the committee stuff was done last night and some personal, chores were completed, I fell asleep immediately. But it's also worked out because we just get to do it on air and we'll just vibe it out and see how it goes. So it's going to be fun. Before we get to that, really quickly, as ever, go to basketunderreview.com, sign up, $10 a month, get access to all the written stuff on the site, which has been just crushing it these past couple days already with all of the tournament coverage and the Champ Week coverage. And it's been a great first season for Basket Under Review. You get access to the Discord, so you get all the breaking news that Trilly Donovan drops in there, and you also support this show and all the other podcasts and video content that we put out all over the internet. So check out basketunderreview.com, $10 a month, and thank you to everyone at the site for doing all the great stuff that they're doing. Also, thank you as ever to homefieldapparel.com, the presenting sponsor of this podcast. We're still talking about their Hoop Society drop that they had a couple weeks back, college basketball themed hoodies and shorts that are pretty cool. The Arizona one is still my favorite, that old school desert logo, and maybe a Propo, considering what I'm thinking about doing with Arizona in my bracket. But go to homefieldapparel.com, check out that stuff. They got tons of other cool college basketball gear. I just randomly clicked through as I was looking at the website before we came on air, and there's a Kentucky jean jacket shirt type of thing with like an old school 80s logo. Not a Kentucky fan, but man, if I was, I'd be rocking that thing and looking like I was at Rupp Arena in like 1987. It's pretty sick. So go check out homefieldapparel.com, and thank you as ever to Homefield for sponsoring our show. All right, Tate, man, we're here. We've been talking about these teams all season. We've got the bracket. We had a very minimal bracket drama on Sunday night because, with the exception of Bruce Pearl kind of trying to get Auburn in the discussion at the last second, as he's done on air for the past couple of weeks, lobbying from his position of influence on the show. There was not a whole lot to get mad about. The bracket kind of presented itself, after last week, and there wasn't really too many ways the committee could get things wrong.
Yeah, the bubble was pretty much popped for most people. And I think, if you had any sort of pushback, maybe Oklahoma had an argument to be in. But again, I think we spend a lot of time talking about some of these teams that are barely getting into the dance instead of some of the teams that are locked in and maybe they get a little lost in the sauce sometimes. Like, I don't feel like we talk about UCLA enough. Like, it tends to be like the 6 to 9 seeds, right, that kind of get lost in the conversation. We talk about the top teams. We talk about the teams on the bubble. And those middle tier teams get a little lost in the conversation. So I think it's nice when the bubble is this easy to sift through, and I feel like it's nice that we don't have a lot of people saying this is, what was it when Carolina got in, it was like an injustice. It was like there were so many different terms and things that they used last year that I was like, okay, a miscarriage of justice. That was it. I don't think I could go that far. I think we've seen a lot more miscarriages of justice, across our timelines these days. But again, it happens with the NCAA tournament. It's nice when the bubble was this easy to sift through and figure out. And man, I'm just looking at the bracket right now, and I'm excited to talk through it all. A lot of good games, a lot of good matchups, and a lot of great storylines, coaches, characters, all the above. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, the thing writing about and covering the sport for long enough is, especially writing Bubble Watch, you tend to get obsessed with the who's in, who's out thing. And it's easy to lose sight of the fact that 99.8% of people after the bracket is released could not care less what teams are not in. If it's not their team, and that
Right.
if there wasn't a really strong argument for their team or the committee screwed something up, which happens sometimes. I mean, look, like I thought West Virginia probably should have got in the tournament last year. It's also they it wasn't like this team's gonna potential
Wake
Final Four
Forest,
team.
with that team a couple years
Yeah.
ago, right? Like you can point to some examples.
Yeah, like or a mid-major team like Indiana State a couple years ago that just like
Right.
you understand why they don't get in, but you'd really like for them to have the chance because they were good enough, and it's tough when you're a program like Indiana State to build an at-large profile. But an hour after the bracket, it's like last time I saw some people talking about, well, there's just really not a lot of outrage for the content machine, with this tournament bracket this year, and it's like that stuff lasts for like 30 minutes on Sunday night. And then everybody's just like, okay, cool. Let's fill out the bracket. Let's talk about the teams that are actually playing. Like no one cares.
Even Bruce Pearl is over it, like he's kind of moved on. Like once he talked to Keith Gill, and Keith Gill was basically like, yeah, this is why they're not in. He just got
they lost 16 games, man.
Yeah,
17
that was basically,
16.
He was like, yeah, I mean, I looked at the metrics and I looked at the record, and that's how we got there. I also enjoyed Bruce Pearl misremembering Calipari losing in the he said that they lost in the national championship game to Wisconsin. It was in the Final Four. He also called Markel Brown. So he was on fire. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, guy's got a lot on his mind right now. A lot of different things to think about. I get it. Okay. So first up, before we get into the bracket proper, we've got the first four, obviously, on Tuesday and Wednesday night. I've got my bracket here with all of the tip times and everything that I'm going to pull up just so I don't get the days and stuff wrong.
I have it too. So we're locked in. I got the regional sites. I got the tip times.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, really. So actually, I don't have that bracket pulled up, but I'll find it. Anyway, what do you make of the first four? Like we were talking before the show, and we're going to do the bracket thing, on the pod, but I typically wait until like Thursday, like Wednesday night, Thursday morning, just because there's always a small part of me that's like, well, hey, look, I would like, it's not the end of the world if I get stuff wrong. I'm going to get stuff wrong. My wife's going to beat me in the bracket, and she actively avoids college basketball as much as possible in the thick of the season. In the beginning of the season, she's like, oh, yeah, I'm so glad college basketball's on. Like, this is cozy. I like having it on the background. And by like February, she's like, you're watching basketball again tonight? I was like, yes, I am. I'll see you at 11. But she'll beat me in the bracket. She's like probably got a 60% win rate in our little 2-person bracket group that we do every year together. So I'm going to get stuff wrong, but I can't help but want that added little extra info, so you're not just flying blind for whatever 11 seed you're going to see that's actually in the first round. And sometimes those teams come out really hot and play super well, and we have seen those teams consistently win. A first 14 win in the first round. Is it every year now? Did we have them last year? I don't even remember, but it's like a trend now that's pretty well. Like I think that quick turnaround and teams are in the groove and they go and knock someone off Thursday or Friday. So what do you think? Who do you think we're going to be seeing emerge from the first four, and kind of what's your read on those games? With the 11 seeds, I think the 16 seeds, we can move on with all due respect to them. They get their moment in the sun on Tuesday and Wednesday as well.
Yeah, we had FDU, which was the 16 seed, where we got the Tobin Anderson right in the locker room, where he was like, I like our matchup with Purdue. And I still feel like that was a classic, first four moment where everyone heard him say that and everyone rolled their eyes. And then when they beat Purdue, everyone's like, wait a second, what did Tobin Anderson know? After he looked at the film for Purdue, which I thought that was a nice first four moment. UCLA last time, obviously in the first four that we were in Indy, they were able to go from the first four to the Final Four, which is an incredible run. NC State's been able to do it. So the first one is on the 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. You get to watch a Maui rematch, which this game was not great the first time. I'm hoping the second time is good. I know the committee said they try to avoid these games, but I guess you can't avoid your fate in Dayton, because here we are, NC State, Will Wade versus Sean Miller. I would call this a bad guy showdown of the yesteryear. We don't exist in those times anymore, but boy, were these two guys great back in the day. Shout out to all the bag dropping that went down. So to see these two programs go at it, I want to see if NC State, the good NC State, shows up. I think that's a real test. I like what you said. I like to take the slashes out of the equation. I don't like making picks when I don't know what team is going to play. So figuring out what NC State team is going to show up, figuring out if this is the good Texas team as well, if they're able to find a way to win this game. I think that's another note to kind of point to. And then Howard and UMBC. UMBC, that's a team that has a little bit of juice, and obviously they've made history happen before with Ryan Odom against Virginia. You and I remember that very well because we were shocked because we'd been defending Virginia for quite some time before that happened. So maybe trying to see what Howard looks like with Kenny Blakeney as well. But NC State, to me, is the one I circle in the first four. SMU and NC State are the two teams that I'm excited to see, with BJ Edwards coming back for SMU, kind of who they are. And I think a lot of people are going to ride with Miami of Ohio because they went undefeated in the regular season. But if you look at the line, Vegas thinks SMU is going to win big.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with Miami I was insistent they had to be in the tournament, right? You cannot leave a one-loss team that had an undefeated regular season out of the tournament. But I also, in Bubble Watch was like pretty consistently, if you listen to what committee people say and what NCAA people say, is they do a lot of selection with wins above bubble, but then they seed oftentimes on predictives. And so that's why it's a little confusing that Vanderbilt is a 5 seed. I don't really understand that. That's like one of the best 5 seeds in the NCAA tournament's history, and we'll get to.
I wish they could have swapped Vanderbilt and St. John's, right? Like, it's just far as matchups. Like, if you swap those two, and I'm sure it's something to do with like where they want to send these teams or whatever. But if St. John's has that 5 and Vanderbilt has their 5, then at least you keep the Big East teams away from each other, and you also make us not have to watch a game we just watched a week ago with Vanderbilt and Florida potentially in the Sweet 16. I just felt like that was an easy swap.
Yeah, and I feel like that will be the game that we end up watching too. But yeah, so UMBC, we want to shout out their whatever 20-year-old is managing their social media account has just been absolutely cooking people the past.
Is it the same guy from the 2018? You know what I mean?
Maybe it is. Yeah,
because he got famous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he kind of like had his Twitter fame and then went away. And he's probably just been cooking in the background, just getting ready for this moment. So he's probably back. He's the Amir
like
Khan
Rocky
of tweeting.
In Rocky 4, just chopping wood, getting his thumbs ready on the iPhone, getting the images set up, and they had some travel issues too. So they're going to be there. I don't know if they've arrived yet or not, but they'll be in Dayton a lot later than Howard were. So that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah, for me, Texas and NC State, like SMU getting in as well. I thought Edwards had a lot to do with that. And if he is as healthy as they're saying, and he was touch and go for the ACC tournament, I think they are a much better team than their seed reflects. The reason they were on the bubble is they weren't incredible with him, but they were like low 30s, mid 30s in Ken Palm pretty much the entire year. He gets hurt. They lose 4 in a row, win 1 game at the conference tournament, lose to Louisville. And then, their metrics and everything, suddenly they're down in like the mid 40s and their record looks a little bit worse. But with Edwards on the floor, they were pretty consistently better than that. So they're a dangerous team if he's fully healthy and can really go. And then Texas and NC State, it's like whoever comes out of that, and it's probably going to be a very high scoring game. It's 2 very good offenses, good jump shooting teams that can get up and down and play some good stuff. Neither of whom guard well at all, particularly Texas. But NC State has not been good defensively all year, and Will Wade's been talking all year about their sort of lack of grit and interior toughness and so on. So it should be a fun watch, which is kind of all you're hoping for. But BYU post Richie Saunders, that's a team that can be upset on the 6th line. So that might be your best option for teams coming out of there. And it'll be fascinating to see, kind of what that game produces. And I'm really interested to see with Miami too, because look, they're like 95th in Ken Palm. We've talked about this a gazillion times. They won all the games they won against a really bad schedule. They absolutely had to be in the field because winning that many games is really hard. But as you said, like when the rubber hits the road in the tournament now, and if you're betting, maybe Miami shocks us all a little bit, but by any metric standard, SMU is a better team, particularly with Edwards back. So we'll be fascinated to see if that actually plays out, or if Miami surprises again, because we've sat here for the last month being like, I'm probably going to lose and it's going to be a bummer. And they won't get in after this great season, but they kept winning. So they're here and they'll be in Dayton this week. Okay. So we're going to go, I'm going to do, just so people listening can follow along. We're going to start left to right on the on the bracket. So we'll do East, West, and South, Midwest. Okay. So just at the very top, we've got Duke and Siena. I don't think we need to talk about it too much. I think Duke's going to win the basketball game, and I'm writing that down right now. And we can get into more detail with Duke as they progress down the bracket. You're good with Duke? I want to get you on record there.
Well, I mean, Jerry McNamara, don't count him out. Okay, this could be his first ACC win if he gets the upset against John Shire, a fellow guard that has had some success in March. Obviously, two guys that won national championships while they were playing basketball. So maybe there's something up his sleeve. I have been pointing this out to people, and Duke fans have been getting upset. Greenville was a weird stop for them back in 2017, and it was a place where they lost to South Carolina. So I don't think they're going to lose to Siena, but I think they might get more of a scare in the second round. We can talk about that once we get there, but I think Duke handles Siena. Maybe it's a little close at the start of the game. We're at the under 16 and people are like, wait a second, Siena's up 12-10. What's happening here? And then all of a sudden Duke wins by 20 as they should. But, I don't think we have to worry about Siena upsetting them in this first game.
Yeah. I mean, look, like we get that a lot. And typically in the 116 games, it turns into a blowout anyway, but you do occasionally get the team that hangs around, and then the number one seed gets extremely nervous, and then it's all up for grabs. And I think back to the year Virginia won the title, the year after UMBC beat them. They were in a dogfight against Gardner-Webb. I was at that game, and you could see as it progressed and kept progressing past halftime. You could just feel like you could have cut it with a knife. It was tangible, the absolute panic and fear. Not only with the players, but all of the Virginia fans in the arena of just like, there is no fucking way this is happening to us again. This cannot possibly happen. Like just horror in that whole arena. And they obviously.
Yeah, Ty Jerome told me one time, he was like, that was the game. Obviously you think about their run. It was like the Auburn, right? Kyle Guy getting fouled. Carson Edwards, incredible game with Purdue. He was like, I think I was the most kind of nervous or like worried when we were playing Gardner-Webb because it just felt like all the demons were back again. Yeah.
100%. They were terrified. They were terrified. It was, and I personally was also terrified because I was like, I don't know if the tournament just started and I was sitting there being like, I don't know if I have it in me to write the story about what you know what I mean? Like, can I just ease into this a little bit and we'll do something like this in the Elite Eight or whatever? Like, I'm not
especially
ready
when myself, I know Titus, like there was a lot of people that were kind of sticking their necks out to defend Bennett ball, which was pushed because aesthetically it wasn't very pleasing. So you kind of had to stick your neck out to defend it. And then when UMBC won, it was like, yeah, you idiots, we told you, and then you're like, I don't even want to be here defending this team, but here I am fighting a good fight.
Yeah. And I mean that not to get too sidetracked, but that UMBC game kind of exposed a little bit of what their problems were, and then he changed it. They brought Kihei Clark in. Suddenly you couldn't just shoot threes over the top of him. He had a guy that could get after point guards out to 25, 30 feet a little bit. They changed their offense, but
and Kihei made one of the most important plays, that pass to Diakite, which I feel like somehow gets lost in the annals of history sometimes. So I don't think Siena's going to pull a UMBC, but I do feel like Jerry McNamara, Gary Doty is the guy for them that I would point to, that maybe a guy on their team that you could say, hey, there's a guy that has some game. So shout out to Jerry McNamara, and Duke handles business. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. Ken Palm's got it at an 81-55 Duke win. So probably.
Sorry, Gavin Doty. What did I say? Gary Doty. I know a Gary Doty. Shout out to Gary.
What's up, Gary? How you doing, man? He's gonna be like, his name's gonna come up in like a Google search result or whatever.
He's like, I do not play for Siena. Yeah.
Google News alerts for his own name. He's gonna be like, wait, what's going on? Okay, so Duke's second round opponent will be one of Ohio State and TCU. Want to give a lot of credit to Jamie Dixon because he once again has this TCU program in the NCAA tournament. I remember trying to kind of pick through their roster in the offseason when I was writing all my conference previews, and just being like, well, it's Jamie Dixon, so they'll probably be better than you think. But you look at the roster coming in and did not think this was going to end up being a tournament team. And in the end, they got there pretty easily, as did Ohio State, their opponent, who looked like they were headed for the bubble the entire season, and then down the stretch here started really playing well and beat Purdue and beat Indiana by a bunch in what was at the time kind of a basically like the end of Indiana's bubble chances. That was kind of a game they had to win. They were, the last team out in most brackets, and the first team out, pardon me, and Ohio State was like the last team in. Ohio State beat Iowa in the NCAA tournament, played really well against Michigan, and they come in with about as much momentum as any team kind of on one of these 8-9 seed lines has had. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they have against TCU, which is crafty and tough and a good team. But I kind of like Ohio State.
Yeah, I like Ohio State as well. I mean, I like David Punch. I thought he looked great against Kansas. This TCU team has had some interesting games this year. I go back to that Kansas game in Allen Fieldhouse. They basically had that game won, and somehow Kansas ended up finding a way to get that game into overtime and got that win. But that would have been a real quality win for this TCU team. You mentioned Jamie Dixon coaching at his alma mater. A lot of people raised their eyebrows when he decided to go do that, but he's been able to put proof in the pudding. He's been a really good coach. But we all wanted to see Bruce Thornton in the tournament. He's in the tournament, and I think he's going to at least get one win, and I think he gets it in round one.
Yeah. And I mean, look, like TCU, I'm just looking at it again now. They lost 4 in a row in January to essentially start the, they went 1-4 to start the Big 12 season. And then 11-3 in their last 14 or something like that. Like they're
playing good. Both
they've
these
been playing really good ball for a while.
This is kind of a game that, not that, we care about busting your bracket, but it's a game that you can go one side or the other based on your conviction and then watch the game and be like, why did I not believe in TCU? So it's a tough pick there with those two teams. Yeah,
it is a tough one. And in a year of chalk, if you're doing a bracket pool and you're trying to rack up these little points in the first round here, this is one that could maybe go either way. But I'm going to stick with Ohio State. I like Thornton a ton, and yeah, credit to the Buckeyes again. A lot of faith in Jamie Dixon coming in this season. Not a lot of faith in Ohio State from the top down in terms of their staff and coaching, and just because there's nothing to go on. And some questions were definitely answered down the stretch. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get their first win. Okay, I've got Ohio State in Penn. We move to St. John's, Northern Iowa, and I gotta say, I still don't know what to make of St. John's. I don't know if I trust them. I should. They're playing great. They just won the Big East title. They have lost one game in like 2 months. Why am I still not all the way there with St. John's? And like when they were a 5 seed, and Rick Pitino, to be fair, talked about it. He was kind of like, yeah, like we didn't have as many quality wins as maybe we would have in a different year for the Big East. And I kind of expected it. Some of the guys thought we should have been a higher seed, but I kind of feel like it's, fair enough or whatever. But like that feels like a really good 5 seed. And at the same time, I'm kind of like, I don't know how deep I want to take St. John's into this tournament.
Yeah, they got a really bad draw. And last year, RJ Lewis coming off that, Big East championship, I was really high on the Johnnies. I thought that was the type of team, just with the tenacity defensively, I thought they would be great. But then they got in a situation where Calipari kind of exposed what they were doing, which was switching everything, and then made them look like they were, minced meat out there and just cooked them up. And I worry about this matchup with Northern Iowa because if there's anything about Northern Iowa, they like to make drama happen in the tournament. Jesperson against Texas, 10 years ago, the last time they were in the tournament. Obviously, Farouk Manesh back in the day. So this is just the type of program that can really make some noise. I like Jacobson as a coach. Trey Campbell's a really good player. Leon Bond. They have some nice pieces on this team. A veteran-type team out in San Diego. No Johnny's fans to be found in sight. This could be an upset, especially if everybody's really riding on the Johnnies again. I would lean towards St. John's, and I will pick St. John's, but I just, we don't see the 5-12 as much as we used to. I just feel like this could be a game where we're a little upset because Rick Pitino's out earlier than we suspect.
Yeah, Will Warren wrote this for Basket and Review on Monday morning, I believe. He basically did what he always does this time of year and goes through and looks historically at kind of, on Ken Palm adjusted efficiency margin terms, where all of these teams on the seed lines rank. And this is the biggest gap we've ever had in terms of efficiency margin between a 5 line and a 12 line, which sort of like across all 4 games, which makes sense when you think about what college basketball, how it's evolved.
We said it, the gap keeps getting bigger between the different tiers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of where we are with some of these games. But I agree with you that, with the possible exception of High Point, who I also like, and we'll talk about them when we get to that side of the bracket, this Northern Iowa team and the way they play is kind of custom, purpose built to give a team like St. John's some problems. They will completely ignore the offensive glass. They will completely, they don't, try to get fouled or generate free throws, really. They are a first shot, take care of the ball, and then sprint back on defense.
Yeah, they're not giving you easy buckets in transition. And St. John's is the type of team, just personality-wise, that I mean, we saw it against UConn, right? When it gets frustrating, they can take their ball and go home. And that's what worries me about this game a little bit.
And half-court offense is not necessarily their forte either. You're right. Like, they kind of do their best stuff in transition, and they will have to get out in transition, and that could be a challenge. I think that they'll probably have enough to get over the line, and I'm probably going to take. Well, am I? I'm kind of talking myself into Northern Iowa, to be perfectly honest with you right now. That, you know what? I'm taking Northern Iowa. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, upset. There you go.
Let's
first
do
one.
It. We'll do our first one, even though this is like the year to not pick any of the 12 seeds, but we got to get one. Maybe
I think that,
the answer.
I mean, you and I in California Baptist, I feel like one of those teams is going to upset one of the Bill Self or Rick Pitino. And it's just like, who's going to get the bomb dropped on them? And, and I kind of lean towards Northern Iowa over Cal Baptist, but also, we'll see.
Yeah, that Cal Baptist team is tough.
They are.
Speaking of which, we can go to them right now for anybody who took in Cal Baptist last week. They are a fun, good team, and will be like, I'm kind of in on Kansas now. I think a lot of people are. We had our moments of wondering how this was all going to play out with them and how it would come together, and if it would, and it kind of has. You know what I mean? It took a long time, and now Darren Peterson is talking more to media members and trying to be a bit more open about the injury stuff that was going on with him early in the year, and what
maybe
what
too
was,
open with the full body cramps.
Full body cramping was apparently the problem. He described it as traumatic, which
kind of explains why when he feels like a cramping, he's like, take me out of the game. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, I don't want to experience that again. So it does like at least make sense now, which I'm happy about that.
Yeah. And he has played, what is it now? 9-10 games in a row, something like that, where he has, not had a minutes limitation really. I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, the Oklahoma State game, February 18th, where everybody went ballistic, us included, when he took himself out at the start of the second half after having 19, or whatever it was, 23 points in the first half. That's kind of all gone away. But they've also lost a bunch of games in that time, so it's kind of like.
And Tiller got benched in the last game that we saw him, right? I mean, he didn't even play in the second half.
Yeah, so it's, Kansas was kind of doing its best stuff in the middle of the year when Peterson was in and out of the lineup in some ways. And since he's come back all the way, they lost to Cincinnati at home. They got blown out by Iowa State, although he only played 23 minutes in that game. That was kind of pre the recent run here. They lost by a ton at Arizona. They lost at Arizona State, and then they lost at Houston in the Big 12 tournament by 22. So, I say that like I'm kind of in on Kansas just because I feel like visually I watch them and they're not standing around looking at Darren Peterson while he has a 40% usage rate on the floor, and then he comes off the floor and the ball starts to move again. Like, those two things have merged a little bit, but the results have not been like supportive of that view. So I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I'm right there with you where Kansas is confounding. I just think Kansas's ceiling is national championship. That's how good they can play. We saw that at home against Arizona. Unfortunately, they're not playing at Allen Fieldhouse. They will have a lot of Kansas fans out in San Diego. Kansas fans travel really well. I think that will help them at some level, but I also feel like the Kansas fans are very smart basketball fans in the same way that all blue bloods are, Indiana, Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, whoever you want to choose. And they also have their level of skepticism. So if this game is going sideways, I like Rick Croy as a coach. Dominique Daniel Jr. is a really good player for Cal Baptist. And if they come out and they're playing, at a high level and Kansas doesn't match their energy and intensity, that's another game that could go sideways. I don't want to do a 12-13 upset, so I'll go Kansas to win that game. But I still think that we have to fact find what version of Kansas we're going to see.
Yeah. And people familiarize yourselves with Dominique Daniels, do a little highlight YouTube scouting. Because he had like the worst game of his season in the first 35 minutes of the game against Utah Valley, and then just completely ran it. Like, he is he's a dog, and he's really fun to watch. 5'10" lefty guard, like the kind of player that I would
gives like Isaiah Thomas vibes. Like, yeah, that's his game.
Yeah, I had a weird thing when I was a kid where I was just thought left-handed players were cool, and I was right-handed. So every time I'd create a player in like NBA 95 or whatever, I would always make myself left-handed. I don't know why. Like Avery Johnson, I used to think was like the coolest looking player. I'm like, what? Looking back now, I'm like, why did I think Avery Johnson was so cool?
You love Chris Mullen.
Yeah, exactly right. I just love lefties. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna take Kansas. But
Me too.
They're a difficult one. They're a tricky one. Okay, Louisville, South Florida. That's another potential upset candidate. Like South Florida, quietly a little bit off the radar because they never had a resume good enough to be in like the bubble discussion. So they were never thrown in as like, you start to generate some juice when you're a team like that. It's like, oh, this team, they're like this team's got to be in the tournament. I'd rather see this team in the tournament than whatever, Oklahoma or Texas or Auburn. They didn't really have that because they didn't have the resume for it. But on the court, they've been playing really, really well. Brian Hodgson, first-year coach, former Nate Oates guy, one of the rising stars in the business who, will at least get a call about just about any open job that comes up this year. So that'll be a subplot to watch. And they can play the game that Louisville wants to play. And if anything, I think it kind of helps Louisville because I think South Florida when we get to what I think will be Louisville, Michigan State in the second round, that's the game that I fear for Louisville, right? Where they can just get punched in the mouth and punked. But this feels like a game that Louisville will be comfortable in, even if South Florida, I like that team.
Yeah, it's going to be a good paced game for Louisville. And when you play their style, I think that, like you said, kind of falls right into their hands. My issue with the Louisville of it all is that this is kind of Hodgson's ACC case, right? There's, Georgia Tech is out there, Syracuse is out there, and he can do the Will Wade model where you just win one game in the tournament. All those powers that be at those places say, well, I just saw him beat an ACC team. Last year Will Wade beats Clemson. They're like, okay, there's proof in the pudding there. Boom, we're good to go. I think this is sort of the same setup for Hodgson, and I do think that Pat Kelsey, there's a lot more pressure on Louisville to win this game than South Florida. They're going to be playing a lot more free, and they're also a championship caliber team. Louisville has not been close to what we thought they would be. I would still lean Louisville, but, you talk about upsets in the first round, and especially for the double-digit seeds, I feel like this is one of the better ones to choose just because they're going to play a similar style. And if it's basically who makes shots wins this game, so I could see you arguing for South Florida. I'll still go with the Cardinals, though.
Yeah, I'm going to take Louisville, but yeah, you're right. Like a year where I feel like my bracket's going to end up super chalky by design, just because I think the numbers support it. I think it makes sense if you're doing a bracket pool and you want to win, like whatever, that this is one of the better games to pick, especially if you think like I do, not to spoil it, but I've got Michigan State in the second round. And I think Michigan State will beat Louisville. And I don't know that we really need to talk too much detail about that. I'm just going to skip ahead around there because I think, Louisville could hit some shots over the top and get up and down a little bit on them, but I think once you get into a grinder with Michigan State, you're in trouble. And particularly if you're a team like Louisville that doesn't have that interior stuff and doesn't have that, they're a very variance related, like reliant team, and they need to make shots and they need to hit perimeter shots. And they haven't really beaten good teams all year. They against the South Floridas of the world, they look fine. Oftentimes they can blow them out, and they get into a game with a real sort of contender or a top 10, top 15 team, and haven't really done it all year. Okay, UCLA, UCF. Assuming everybody's relatively healthy, and it sounds like they're going to be, right, as of this recording. Donovan Dent's had a couple injury things. Tyler Bilodeau sounds like he's going to be back after an injury scare. It's not as serious as first feared. I like UCLA a lot, playing great. Mick Cronin, he came out, he apologized after he kicked poor Steve Jamerson out of the Michigan State game, and then went nuts on a reporter for no apparent reason other than he had just totally lost his head. He apologized, said he needed to chill out a little bit, apologized to the player, and UCLA has rattled off huge wins ever since. And I think I like to joke about that being the reason why they're playing so well. I think it's really just Donovan Dent has been playing incredible. You look at his numbers over the past 6-7 games, and he's just been completely lights out with the ball in his hand. So UCLA they're getting that version of Dent that I think we all thought they were getting when he moved over from New Mexico and was one of the biggest portal gets in the last spring. So I like UCLA a lot here.
I do too. And the Donovan Dent, Tyus Edney copycat play against Illinois, I feel like that was the turning point of the season. I was at that game. I felt like that was the time they galvanized together as a group. And I think UCLA is going to slow this game down, limit possessions for UCF. UCF wants to get into a faster paced game. I think it's a bad matchup for UCF. I like Johnny Dawkins. I like this team, but I'm going to take UCLA as well.
Yeah, and whatever happens, and maybe they'll win, and we'll have a chance to talk about them, next week before the second weekend. But great season for UCF. Like you look at that roster coming in, it was completely new. It looked like a little bit like Dawkins had just kind of thrown like
everybody he could in the portal that would commit.
Yeah. Like he had a wall full of dartboards and just hit like 5 out of the 12 that he had stacked. You know what I mean? Like it's just all over the place in terms of roster build, but seeing it on the floor, it has made sense. And Themis Folks has been fantastic for them, and a real wild card, like enjoyable type player who has a super high assist rate, also a super high turnover rate, and you just kind of take the good with the bad with him. So he's been fun, and we'll see how it goes for them. UConn, I have beating Furman, although I do not trust UConn at all coming in. I'm just going to put those cards on the table right here, and they'll probably go to the Final Four now that I've said that. And I'll have UConn, no escalators will be tweeting at me or whatever, being like, oh, look at this picture I took, haha. But this UConn team, to me, as I've seen their ceiling, I think there may be something to the idea that the way the Big East has evolved in terms of its physicality, and against a team like St. John's, that's not the ideal setting for them. But they have allowed too many teams to stay in games too close for too long this season for me to trust them in a one out, one and done tournament format. That's just kind of where I am with them.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup to give Furman. Furman, the 5th tallest team in the country. The Bowser brothers have kind of become superstars there in their tournament. Bob Ritchie's a really good coach and a guy that has been brought up for a lot of jobs over the years. I feel like Furman's going to keep, I'm sure the spread, I've been looking at some of these first round spreads. Anything, is in the realm of possibility, like 25 points. Everything's seemingly over 20 points when you do these 1 and 2 seeds, just because of the gap that we talked about. So I think if you're one of the betting people, maybe you take Furman points in this game. I don't think they win this game, but I think it is a little bit closer than we suspect. And I think we get a great matchup in the second round, potentially, with Mick Cronin versus Dan Hurley. My God, those officials, we should all be sending them some letters of, hey, thinking of you. I know this is going to be a tough one with those two maniacs coming at your head.
The number of times the court is going to get stomped on that sideline.
Oh, yeah.
We should, It
the
needs to be
court
like
is going to get beat up
reinforced.
in this region, by the way. Duke's going to be slapping the court. Mick Cronin's going to be stomping on the court. My God.
Yeah, it's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of stomping and a lot of like
Tom Izzo. I mean, there's a lot of hotheads in this region.
Hurley's suit gradually coming untucked and
Bill Self,
getting into
Patino.
disarray.
My God. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, this is the thing about this region is that, like, if you haven't been watching college basketball this year and you just look at it and you're, like, oh, the tournament's here, I'm going to pick some teams. This looks like, from the brands and the coaches, it looks like it's completely loaded. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you actually go up and down. You're like, I don't know if this region is actually as good. You know what I mean? Like, Duke's the number 1 overall seed in this region. Arguably, this is the weakest of the 2 seeds, I would say. Although, we can talk about Purdue. But like Houston and Iowa State, I think, are on a different level. Like, those are 2 teams we talked about as national title contenders pretty much all year. Whereas UConn, for me, has always kind of floated a little bit below that. So yeah, like the brand name stuff is like, a person in your office pool who doesn't watch basketball, like, geez, this is like completely loaded. What are you supposed to do here? But actually kind of not.
And that's why you see the radio guys being like, Duke got screwed. What a gauntlet of a region, and then they go through it and you're like, yeah, but UConn's not the UConn we saw in 23 or 24 by any means, No. Obviously Louisville's kind of been a paper tiger this year. Kansas is like hit or miss. We don't know what version we're going to get of them. St. John, same sort of deal, right? You can kind of write off a lot of these teams.
Yeah. Okay. So let's finish out this region.
Yeah.
We're in the second round now. I've got Duke, Ohio State. I think that's probably one too much for Ohio State. Like that team, like Thornton, but Duke's got about 5 guys they can put on him when they get switched or whatever.
Dame Sarr is going to pick him up. Yeah.
It's not a good scene for opposing guards against Duke, because not only are all of their guards like 6'6", but they have a bunch of dudes who are 6'8" and 6'9" who can guard pretty much anybody in the country too. So Duke is going to win, and probably by a lot, in my view. Do you agree with that? Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right. Then we've got Northern Iowa, Kansas in my bracket. which I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about it, but I might, I don't know. I can't believe I'm doing this on air because I already want to get rid of I already want to put St. John's back on the line. I did this like when I was in between ESPN and The Athletic. I was like finishing out my contract to ESPN or whatever, and I like did a Twitch stream just to like be like, "Hey guys, what's up? Let's pick a bracket." And I remember doing that on air then too, and just being like, why did I do this? Like, I'm making decisions in the moment.
No, it's the worst. Like, I've done the live bracket thing. You start looking at your bracket, you're like, I hate this bracket. Who picked this?
Yeah. I need to like wipe this out and do
yourself,
a whole new one.
You know what I mean? You're like, I'm trying to find out the guy who did this.
Yeah, it was like when I was at ESPN, they'd have us do like these video clips right after the bracket came out. It was like you had 5 minutes, then like send in your final four. And I'm a big like one bracket guy, so I would pick my final four and then like retroactively have to go through the bracket and be like, well, yeah, actually. Sure, I can justify this. Like, yeah,
let me find out how to create this path.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, look, the same.
I say we ride with Kansas. I just think so.
Yeah. The same argument for you and I exists against Kansas and whatever, but we could also get a Kansas and a Darren Peterson version that we've been waiting for all year. So we'll see.
Also, a number one pick showdown in the Sweet 16. Then Cam Boozer versus Darren Peterson. For all the draft heads out there, that could be a good one.
That would be fun. I mean, wouldn't consider myself a draft head, but I want to see those two guys play on the same court. Absolutely. Yeah. I already put Michigan State past
I'm good with
Louisville.
That.
That's again, Louisville fans can tweet at me when they win by 20, but I think they might get like emotionally devastated. Like just like, what the hell is this? Why are these guys playing so hard? Why are they punching me in the face? What's going on?
I think they leave upset about Kelsey's coaching when Tom Izzo does a Tom Izzo, you know what I mean, and gets to the Sweet 16.
I think they're kind of already there, so it would further reinforce where a lot of Louisville fans are right now. I think. I'm gonna. What do you think? UCLA, UConn. I'm tempted to just let UConn pass, but my concerns have been aired.
I think UConn's in the Sweet 16. I think they get by UCLA. I think it's a close game. I think UCLA gets an opportunity down the stretch. They just don't find a way to hit a shot. UConn wins a close one, and they squeak through to the second weekend. So I think Michigan State, UConn feels like a Sweet 16 matchup right there. Izzo versus Hurley. Hurley's talked about how much he idolizes Izzo. That's the coach that he looks up to in college basketball. You can read between the lines there. They're two guys that definitely do it their own way, to say the least. So to see them in the Sweet 16 would be a good matchup. And then on the other side, if we had Kansas Duke, that would be a very, very fun second weekend there in the East.
Yeah, it would. That would be elite, and that's chalk, and I think that's kind of the way to go. We'll take Duke past Kansas. Just think, even without Foster. And do we know the status of Ngongbo, by the way?
The status is Shire says that he's going to play. So, okay. I don't think he'll play against Siena. I don't know if he'll play against Ohio State. Maybe he plays some spot minutes against Ohio State. They need the rim protection. Like, if you really look at Duke's defense, right, there's like the three levels of defense, right? It's Dame Sarr at the point of attack, ball, just pressure that he puts on. If you get past Dame Sarr, you get down to that next level of guys, Malik Brown deflecting all these passes. You really can't make passes in the interior. And if you're able to get through those two levels of tough defensive intensity, you have Ngongbo on the back end who's at the rim, right? So, like, that's sort of the three levels of torture that Duke's defense puts you through. And right now, the two levels are good enough, but I think they're going to need that third gear to actually go in the national championship. So I think Ngongbo, when he comes back, which I suspect would be in the second round, and they'll probably get him in for some spot minutes there, and then he'll probably ramp up for that Kansas game, and then Badunga versus Ngongbo will be a really good matchup.
Yeah, and look, they're diminished without Foster, but of the two absences, I
think Caden Boozer answered the bell, as we talked about. They needed to see it. They needed to see like proof of what he could do. He got all the confidence in the world. He was the best player for the majority of that Virginia game, and he hit a huge bucket against Florida State on an offensive rebound. So he got a lot of confidence.
Yeah. All right. We've got Duke. We've got Michigan State versus UConn. Is this where you want to go to the end of the line with UConn here? Or you want to stick them past Michigan State? Because now that they're here, I'm kind of you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Michigan State. I want
UConn versus Duke. I want it in the Elite Eight. These are two fan bases that both try to claim Madison Square Garden, even though Rick Pitino and St. John's plays there. One says Cameron North, one says Thor South. They have a lot of, they're like the Spider-Man meme. Like they're the exact same people pointing at each other, and they have the exact same kind of, makeup as far as who they are and the way that they view their basketball teams. And these are two programs that since 1985, I mean, UConn's won 6 championships, Duke's won 5. Obviously 1999, is always in the back of both those schools' minds. Jim Calhoun getting over the hump, beating that incredible Duke team. So to see that and have the storylines of Dan Hurley versus John Shire, I think that would be great TV, and I would love to see it in the Elite Eight.
Okay, I'm going to take, just to be different, so we don't literally have the same bracket.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Michigan State.
I like it.
But I don't have a ton of conviction about it either way.
Duke beat the shit out of Michigan State. So if they see him again, I think they do the same thing. It would be better for Duke to see Michigan State.
And I like Michigan State, and I kind of marvel at them because they have literally one guy who's functional on offense, but he's so good, and not functional, but you know what I mean? Is if they didn't have Jeremy Fears, they would not be able to create any shots.
He orchestrates everything, but Duke completely took him out of the game. I mean, he had his worst game of the year against Duke, and I think the same thing would happen again. And
that's what I have, Duke in the Final Four.
Yeah, I have Duke.
Not exactly unexpected or scintillating in terms of likelihood, but they're really, really, really good at basketball. And I think everything tells you, in this bracket this season and the trend of the sport that we've been watching for the last 2 years, really, the best teams are way better than they were for most of the past 15 years. You know what I mean? They just are.
And they're not going to beat themselves. That's the problem with Duke and the whole conversation. Like, Duke is not going to do dumb things. Maybe at the end of a game where they get a little, like John Shire at the end of a game really wants to give it to his star player. That's the one flaw that they really have. And he did it with Cam Boozer again, where he's just like, you go get a shot for yourself. But when he just draws up like ATOs, like at the under 4 or whatever, and Isaiah Evans gets an open 3, Dame Sarr gets a look in the corner, whatever it may be, that's when Duke is cooking, and they just don't make mistakes. So I think that if they do what they've been doing all year long, they'll get to the Final Four.
Agree. Yeah, it's been very interesting to see Shire evolve as a coach, because again, those first 2 seasons was kind of like, oh yeah, it's fine. Kind of felt like it was almost replacement level given the talent. And then last year he really changed a lot of what they were doing offensively, and this year he's been cooking throughout. You're right, like every little set after timeout, the stuff they did against Michigan a few weeks back, like they've been not only super talented with the best player in the country, but also very tactically effective around.
Look what he did to Virginia, right? Onyenzo's dominating that game. Virginia could have easily and maybe should have won that game, but he gets Onyenzo out on the perimeter, gets Cam Boozer to bring the ball up the court. That opens up the lane, and then they, kind of just handle business down the last 4 minutes, and that was all him scheming that up. So you got to give him credit.
Yep. All right, let's move to the South. We've got Florida. Our oft discussed Florida all throughout the season. I would say next to St. John's, probably our most discussed team this season. Just like their ups and downs and all that good stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and put Florida into the next round, and we could talk about Clemson, Iowa. And I don't know about you, I kind of like Iowa here. Clemson is fine. They're a solid team. I'm okay with them, but I think for all of Iowa's flaws, they are tricky. And when you're in the tournament, they play a weird style of basketball under Ben McCollum. Ben McCollum's style is very unique. It's slow, but it's not like old school motion offense. Bennett Sturts sometimes can get into the okay, everybody just stand around and let Bennett Sturts do what he's going to do with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. But as long as they keep things moving and their performances kind of match what they did towards the very end of the year when they were really good against Michigan and pretty good in the Big Ten tournament, then I like Iowa here.
Yeah, Clemson and Iowa play very similar styles. It's going to be both those teams are going to be happy with the pace that they're playing at. I just think that Iowa has a little bit more firepower with Sturts. And at the end of the day with Clemson, it's just like, who's taking the shot down the stretch, And it sometimes kind of feels like Dylan Hunter is a minus on offense. It's kind of 4-on-5. I think that's going to hurt them in this game. And with that limited possessions, I think Iowa has the upper hand. So I'll go with Iowa as well. Oh, muted. They're trying to stop you.
Oh,
Clemson Tigers. Yeah, they were coming after you.
Oh, my goodness. Yep. The Clemson guys got me. The Brownell stands. Brownell Hive. Yeah. Okay. Vanderbilt McNeese. this is one where I'm not going to entertain an upset. I picked Vanderbilt to go to the Final Four before the season started. I got to say I'm a little disappointed they're a 5 seed. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, although I kind of get it also. We also know that what happens pretty much like after Friday in terms of seeding for the top teams, like the committee's just kind of like, no, we're good. We did most of this work already. But I think Vanderbilt is a sneaky pick. I think I might follow through on my Final Four thing here. I'm not sure, but I'm not having them lose to McNeese.
Yeah, I think McNeese had it last year when they got the upset in the 5-12 game. I don't see it repeating here. Even though I like the McNeese team, I think they have some talented guys, and obviously, some familiar names and faces that from other programs. Of course, that's what they do. But yeah, I'll take Vanderbilt, and I love Byington. I think he's a really good coach, so I think they handle business in that game.
One of the teams of the season that have been good for so long now that we kind of don't even talk about them anymore, but that's Nebraska.
6-6 to wrap up the year. I think that, when people started tuning in, they started playing poorly, unfortunately.
It's true. They were for for anyone who doesn't look at college basketball until the Super Bowl's over, or even until this week, trust us when we say Nebraska was one of the most enjoyable stories in the sport for most of the season, and then the wheels have a little bit come off in the past few weeks. Now, I think they've had some shooting variance stuff, and they are a pretty variance heavy team. They do take a lot of threes. They're 11th in the country.
They were beating Michigan at Michigan. There were some games too where it's just like they had control and they just kind of let off the reins at the end of some of those games too.
Yeah. I mean, the Purdue game, they played well and lost at home in overtime to a team that's figured it out. They do need, they can also give you the UCLA game where they lost 72-52 and probably shot like 0% from three. I don't have the box score. What was it? Yeah, 5 of 24.
Yeah, I was going to say 0% sounds about right.
You can just chalk it. You can chalk it up. I mean, they generate, 50% of their shots of their field goal attempts are threes, which is 50.7%, which is 11th highest in the country. According to KenPom, they generate 40.9% of their points from beyond the arc, which is 12th highest in the country. So they have to make threes to win. It's just, you watch Nebraska, you watch them play, and when they're making shots, they will beat anybody in the country. When they're not, they're in trouble. I think it's fine against Troy, but they're the kind of team in the tournament that scares me a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Troy is a good team. Scott Cross, really good coach. Thomas Dow, Victor Valdez, Cooper Campbell. Those are the big three guys for them to kind of know. I will say Nebraska has to make history this year. They have to win one game. I think they do win this game. I think the next round is when they finally lose. But again, if you're Nebraska and you're a Nebraska basketball fan, all you want to do is not be the trivia question, which is like which power program has never won an NCAA tournament game. And the answer is Nebraska. So this is the first time to get over that hump. I think they do it. It's going to be closer than people suspect because Troy, like I said, is a good team. But I think Nebraska finds a way to win, and they finally get their first win.
Yep, just got to get one. And unlucky to have been seated where they were seated with the highest ranked, in terms of efficiency margin, the highest ranked 5th seed in the history of the tournament. So Carolina VCU. Oh, this is a good one for you. You can tell me whether my suspicion of doing a little VCU here is silly, or if I'm onto something. What do you think?
I don't think it's silly at all. Phil Martelli Jr., a really good coach. VCU is a team that can shoot threes at a high clip. If they get going, I just think they can go really bad. I think Vasar is really the X factor in this game. If Henry Vasar is engaged and the defense of VCU isn't able to kind of keep him out of the paint and keep him from getting paint touches, that's the one reason you would believe in North Carolina. But personally, I think VCU is going to win this game, and I think it's going to lead to a very dubious, long conversation, hard look at the program for North Carolina. I don't think it'll be any sort of, seminal change or anything, but I think it will be a big talking point. Maybe it's good for the portal that they can go ahead and get in early, because I don't think they have a shot to actually do some, maybe Sweet 16 if things break their way. But Illinois, I think, would score 115 points on Carolina and their defense right now. So, just go ahead and take them out, VCU. And this would be a great story for Phil Martelli Jr.
You sound like Indiana fans who are just like, please don't put our team in the tournament. We're done. We're good.
Once Caleb
really
went
don't
down,
need to put us in.
It's just like you're watching just a helpless team at times, especially with the guard play. The guard play is just poor.
Yeah, it's too bad too, because obviously the Wilson injury has a lot to do with it, and it will color the offseason conversation because there will be people who are like, "Well, it was coming together with Wilson, and then he got hurt, and obviously that changed things." But I think like the team has had flaws outside of him, pretty much all year, and
yeah, they didn't have a point guard. I mean, and Derek Dixon has stepped into that role, but again, when you only have one guy who can get into the lane and penetrate and beat his man off the dribble, which is Seth Trimble, you have a problem. And they have that problem, and I think it's been exposed multiple times. When a team is physical like Clemson, Duke, they just really have no answer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go with VCU. I'm happy with that. They're playing great these days.
They really are.
Really happy that they won the A10 title, with all due respect to the Flyers fans out there, because there's every chance the committee would have looked at that and just said, oh, well, the VCU is close enough to the bubble. Just kick them out, put Dayton in, and we proceed. We don't have to screw up our whole cut line for this. And that would have been a little unfair to VCU, but I could have seen it happening, and it didn't happen because they won the game, which is always the best strategy when you're on the bubble.
And they probably would have put Dayton in Dayton, right? It probably would have been SMU Dayton, and then Miami of Ohio probably would be playing Carolina in Greenville, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it may have been. Yeah, there may be some. I don't know. Is Dayton allowed to do that? I guess they are.
I think they definitely are. And I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be. That would be electric. Honestly,
talk about they want to sell tickets too. At the end of the day, like those Dayton fans would pack that place up.
They absolutely would. I mean, the first four being in Dayton has been one of the the redeeming things about the first four for years, because that's a great basketball city, and they show up. Like, if anybody's ever gone to the first four or covered it, it's a really great atmosphere for games that, like, you'll have whatever, Howard UMBC, the gym is going to be pretty much full.
Yep.
And by the time the second game comes on, it's like people are locked in. It's really, really good. These are teams that have nothing to do with Dayton, Ohio, and people show up.
They just love college basketball.
Support the event. It's great. Okay, Illinois Penn. TJ Power, man.
44.
Yeah.
That was the best conference championship game of the day, by the way. It was incredible.
It really was. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, also, look, I feel like I'm pretty clued in to a lot of mid-majors. I'll admit, I did not know TJ Power was playing for Penn now. I'll hold my hands up on that one. I missed that.
He's not even their best player typically, but he was in that championship game.
Yeah, it's just like, talking about NIL and hoovering up all of the good players from the mid-majors up to the medium, mid-tier power conference teams, all the way up to the top of the sport. But like, TJ Power's been going in the opposite direction, from Duke to UVA to Penn, and now he's in the NCAA tournament, and Penn is playing really well, and I think probably gets stomped by Illinois, because this is the kind of thing that Illinois does against teams that cannot match up with them. They tend to run things up. Yeah, they run it up too. They're one of those teams, like, if they're feeling good, they know they're better than you, they'll try to beat you by 40.
Yep. And I think they will in this game. I also want to see Fran McCaffrey versus Brad Underwood. I just think that's a nice tip of the cap to the old Big Ten there, with those two coaches on the sidelines. And Fran's happy to be in the tournament. He did his job. He got Penn back to the tournament. I think it had been since 2018 or 2017 since they had been in the tournament. So a nice note for Penn and for Penn basketball. And if TJ Power still has 30 points in this game, that'd be great for him. But I think Illinois wins big.
Yeah. St. Mary's, Texas A&M. This is going to be a tricky one. I think that, like, a lot of people will, your average bracket filler outer will just chuck, whatever team into the Houston maw and not think about it again. But A&M is fun stylistically, the way Bucky McMillan's teams play, and it's worked this year in a way that I wasn't sure it was going to, given some of the guys that he recruited. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel, it's all well and good getting, your super hungry mid-major guys or lower level guys to sell out and press constantly and play this kind of extreme style. And I wondered if we might see a little bit of like a Shaka Smart happen to him when he went from VCU to Texas before the season started. But he's mostly, run his stuff the way he wants to run it. And it's largely worked for A&M, being back in the tournament the first year under a new coach with a brand new roster at a program like A&M. After the Buzz Williams era is pretty impressive stuff, and Rayshon Agee is a stud. And St. Mary's will try to slow this game down to an absolute crawl, and so it's going to be very interesting to see. Like, if you want to see a team dribble the ball up the floor, particularly because not just because that's what they always do, but because that will be probably what Randy Bennett thinks is most conducive to St. Mary's controlling the terms of engagement. That's about to happen. There's going to be a lot of 30 seconds shot clocks going off in increments in this game. We'll see how it plays out. What do you think?
Yeah, buckyball versus Randy Bennett. I think that's going to be, talk about contrasting styles. That's going to be a lot of fun to see how they handle it. I like St. Mary's in this game. I like Mikey Lewis. I think he's one of those guys in the tournament that you just like to have in your back pocket that can get you a bunch of points if you need him to. He's also smart enough to know when to go and when not to go as far as like gunning for points and gunning for baskets. I think buckyball's just been trending down this year. They were at one point first in the SEC, so they were playing some really good basketball back in like mid-January, and then it sort of tapered off a little bit. So I'll take St. Mary's. I think they've been battle-tested. The WCC was really good this year, 3 teams in the tournament, so I think they get to the next round. And I think St. Mary's Houston will be a fun matchup.
Yeah. And I think St. Mary's, it's always interesting with them because they often come into these tournaments like top 20, top 25, and in terms of efficiency, usually have really good defense, but they don't necessarily have like top end talent. It's kind of the same way this year, except what they do have is extreme height.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are taller than ever this year. And so the stuff that they do well is kind of like a miniature version of the stuff the really good teams in college basketball this year are doing well, of just like total rim dominance on both ends of the floor, lots of easy buckets, and a sort of high floor for your performance because you're preventing easy shots and getting plenty of them yourself. I agree. I'm going to take St. Mary's.
Also, the last time I saw it to A&M was
sorry,
Oklahoma just destroying them. So it's just like hard image to get out of my head, you know?
Yeah.
Not to say
Oklahoma,
like one game sample really matters, but it does a little bit here.
Yeah, Oklahoma decided to be really good at basketball for just a minute there.
Yeah, I would much rather see them in Dayton, as I said.
Same with Ole Miss. That was an interesting, sort of sub plot at the SEC tournament. Yeah, Houston, Idaho. I think I'm taking Houston, and I think obviously I'm taking Houston, but also I think we mentioned this a little bit before, like Houston, Iowa State. I would maybe chuck Virginia in as a 3 seed. That's better than usual. Purdue is the number 1 overall, team coming into the season. Like these 2 seeds are extremely, extremely good this year, and Houston is quite possibly the best of them.
Yeah, and a great draw to be playing in the South. They get, potentially an Elite 8 game against, Florida or whoever comes out there in Houston. So they get a basically de facto home game to go to the Final Four. So, and the last time they were in Indy, guess who was in the Final Four? Houston. So, I mean, this is a pretty good draw for Kelvin Sampson. I know I saw during the, when they were doing the bubble reveal, he said A&M, like he guessed A&M, and everyone's like, oh, he how did he know that? I was like, I'm sure he just keeps up with what teams would probably be that 10 seed there. And maybe he was worried about the matchup with A&M. I doubt it, but Kelvin Sampson's a very smart guy. And I think Houston, I really like Houston, not to, spoil the picks, but I really like Houston to come out of this regional.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's go back to the top then. I think Florida is absolutely going to batter Iowa.
Yep.
That's just like the mismatch of all mismatches in terms of size and front court and all that good stuff. Vandy, Nebraska, I'm picking Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt, not to spoil my picks, but as I said, I think I might take Vanderbilt coming out of the South. And that they'll probably, beating Florida again is a tall task. But I like them. And I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I like Vanderbilt to beat Nebraska. I think that matchup with Florida, I would feel a lot better if Vanderbilt didn't just do what they did to Florida. Florida's really good at taking tape and making adjustments, and I think that's one thing. I know Todd Golden.
He's chippy. He's gotten chippy.
I know. He's kind of losing it a little bit. But
he said he wanted to beat Kentucky by 20. That's why he was disappointed.
He said they never led for a minute in the game. He just kind of like I don't know. He's hamming it up. I mean, I guess he's trying to lean into like the coaching bit a little bit too much, is what I would say. But I just think it's a tough draw for Byington and for Vanderbilt. To go back to what you said at the top, just to have to see this team in the Sweet 16 is a little bit unfair. So I would lean Florida just for the law of averages to even out there. But I could definitely see Vanderbilt doing it again. I've been really impressed with what Duke Miles has been able to do as a defender, especially. Tyler Nichols has been a great piece for them. Jalen Washington's been able to give them some nice minutes. And obviously Tanner is one of my favorite guards in the country. So I understand your love for this Vanderbilt team. They deserve it.
Yeah, I'm also just kind of stuck, or not stuck, but like I feel like I want to follow through on my preseason prediction. But the more I think about this Florida game and them winning against Florida again after Todd Golden is like, you know,
Chomping at the bit, pun
yeah,
intended.
cutting, like just, you know, flipping off Mark Byington pregame, just like standing in his face and screaming at
Giving
him.
him
Like,
suck it as he.
did you see the video? Did you see the video of Mark Pope getting teed up, and it was like the sideline angle, so it had Golden in the background, and Pope gets teed up, and Golden just looks over him, and starts grinning ear to ear and clapping.
Yeah,
just like
it's wild.
He is chipping at him this year.
I did appreciate Calipari's reaction, which was just like, "Are you kidding me?" He was like, "He's like, what is wrong with this guy?"
Yeah, Cal was just like, "What?"
Yeah.
It was pretty great. All right, we've got VCU in Illinois. I think Illinois. That's another one where Illinois will just kind of do what they do to teams that they are superior than, and will get out with a an 8, 10, 12 point run and then kind of put it away.
Agreed. Right there with you.
Then we've got St. Mary's in Houston. Game's going to be 50 possessions. You're going to want to rip your eyeballs out.
Right.
Guys are
not going to
be
an aesthetically pleasing game to watch for sure.
It's going to be like a mud wrestling sort of situation for every rebound, just a drag out fight. But Houston is the master of that, and they also have Kingston Flemings, and I think that's a pretty easy pick for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Houston learned some lessons in the Big 12 tournament. I think Sanak and Flemings after the game being pretty contrite with the fact that like they didn't play their best. I think one thing that I marvel at with Sampson is like the accountability of his players. Like he really doesn't have to say anything to these guys. If you watch him post game, even with these freshmen, they're just like so perfectly equipped to kind of define what went wrong and what went right in the game. And they don't really ever put it on, one person. They take accountability personally. If anything, they don't ever, they just really don't ever show signs of not being a team, which I think is a superpower. And that's why they're so good as a program. So I like Houston to win this game. 2 really good coaches, 2 really good cultures, but I think Houston handles business. And then I think Houston, Illinois is a fascinating game there in the Sweet 16.
It is. It's a very fascinating game because these are 2 of what? Let's double check it so I don't get it wrong. Yeah, Illinois is 7th at KenPom right now. Houston's 5th. And again, with physicality and size, this is one of the rare times that Houston will be the smaller team and arguably the less physical. Like that's the thing about Illinois that is so tricky to me because they're not amazing defensively, but they're good. They're also really like I was saying this, I've said this once already, but like the game against Michigan kind of mystified me in some ways because I was really high on Illinois coming into that game at home against Michigan because I look at Illinois and I see some of the stuff that we saw with Duke of like Michigan has the size and physicality and reach and rim dominance advantage over almost every team, but Illinois in theory should be one of the teams where that's not the case. You know what I mean? In terms of what they do on both ends on the floor with their size, but also those guys move, the Ivisic guys move. They're not just like big lugs down, hanging around on the low block. And Michigan just kind of ran them. And a lot of it was, Yaxel bullying an 18-year-old child for 40 minutes, just picking him up full court, like literally like a dad, teaching their son to be tougher in the driveway or something. It was, I felt bad after a while, but that Houston's going to try and do that too. You know what I mean? Like Houston, if Wagler's in the game, or if Houston's playing Illinois, anytime Wagler is in the game, someone is going to be guarding him, like right up in front of him, talking to him, chirping at him. Probably be Uzan, just all up in him. So that it's again, I feel like there's no tangible thing that gives me a lack of faith in Illinois. There's just something intangible and this is bad. I realize this is like bad analysis and Illinois fans will get mad at me. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they feel it too, but I'm just kind of like, I feel like there's a limiter for them, even though I really like this team and have super enjoyed watching them play all year.
It just feels like Houston's going to knock them off their spots and do it pretty easily because of their physicality. And I like Illinois' size, but I don't like the fact that they're tall and not big. And I think that's really the issue with this team. It's like tall and slim, and they don't really have a physical presence at all. And I wish they had one kind of bruiser to throw into a game like this that could help them out. And I feel like, Jake Davis is kind of like their dirty, you know what I mean, do the grunt work for us, but that is not the guy that's really going to give Houston any sort of issues. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Houston just kind of mucks this game up, physically, gets them into a tailspin, and Wagler has a tough day, and I like Houston to move on.
Yeah. And like, it's kind of the thing with Wagler too, is like, he's tall, like he's a 6'6" point guard with a great feel and great ball handling. But as NBA people, NBA draft type people have mentioned about him, and I think this is kind of overthinking it in terms of him at the next level, because he'll get bigger and stronger as he goes. He's still very young, but he is not like a super explosive athlete. He's very crafty and he's long. But like Yaxel is also tall and is a 23-year-old dude who looks like he's been lifting weights for 6 years or whatever. So the physicality mismatch there was noticeable. Houston will have some of that. And
I think Boswell's the only guy on Illinois that can get to the paint. You know what I mean? Like physically be able to kind of bump his way into the paint. But everybody else is going to be standing near half court, just, passing the ball around. That's what I see in my mind when I think of this game.
All right. So we've got Houston past Illinois, Florida, Vanderbilt. I'm talking myself out of it, but I'm talking myself out of it, but I don't want to. I want the Vanderbilt fans to love me forever.
I think you do. I think you take Vanderbilt. I'll take Florida. I'll be the fall guy.
All right, fine. Let's do it.
And then I'm all chalk so far, which is disgusting. But I do feel like that's what we're trending towards. And honestly, Florida in Houston is a really bad draw for Florida, and I think that's why I got to take Houston to go to the Final Four.
All right, I'm going to take Vanderbilt just for the.
Yeah, go for the vibes.
I'm here for the brotherhood. Yeah. I'm here for the.
You're a Commodore.
For the communal space. It's like that meme of Che Guevara when he saw Fidel Castro do a Euro step, and he was like, it results in a point, but at what cost to the communal spirit? That's what me taking Florida would be here with me and the Vanderbilt fans. It's just like, it's probably an effective move, but
But who cares? And also, no one's going to go hold your bracket up to you, except for the Vanderbilt fans when you don't pick them and they do make the Final Four. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, so that's true. You can't go. That's a great point.
Yeah,
that's the.
They're going to be like, you jumped off the boat right when we were about to get there,
100%.
Anchor down.
Okay, we got two more regions to work our way through here quickly. I'm going to go ahead and go with Arizona.
Shout out to Rod Strickland, fins up, great storyline. I'm glad LIU didn't have to play in the Dayton playing game, so that was a nice little cap there. And maybe they give Arizona a scare, because I think Arizona is going to get scared along the way. I think they're kind of similar to a Virginia, where it's not going to be an easy path. I think they do find a way. But yeah, let's take Arizona.
100% Arizona. I'm flirting with taking Arizona as my national title pick. I talked myself into it a little bit earlier today when I was doing another appearance on Russillo's show, and I've seen them in person lose as like a 2 seed multiple times now, like covering Princeton. The tournament.
Yeah,
I was at the Princeton game. I covered the Princeton game, and I just this team is way better than that one was. But there's, that thing in the pit of your stomach of you feel like it's one of those things where we're sitting here talking about it now, and it's like in a week, we'll be like, why did we pick Arizona? They all, you know what I mean? What were we thinking? But no, Arizona is absolutely amazing at basketball, and that stuff is again, you talk about intangible reasons. That's the most intangible. We're just the same with Virginia, and maybe it will take a scary road, but I think Arizona's, staying in this tournament for a while. Villanova, Utah State. Villanova, the most mid team of the 2025-26 season. Look, great first season with Willard. Exactly what Villanova fans kind of wanted in terms of getting back on the board after the kind of semi-disastrous run they've had post Jay Wright. But look, Villanova has not beaten anyone good really all year. They've beaten the teams they should beat routinely, with the exception of Creighton at home. I think is their one game that's kind of off the map. And I have absolutely zero faith in them against quality competition. I think Utah State is quality competition. I think Utah State will win the game.
I'm right there with you. And I think this is Calhoun's game. Again, it's, VCU, Utah State. It just feels like whoever's coaching there, they're just in a good spot. And this Utah State team is really good. I think Villanova shoots themselves in the foot too much. They miss free throws. They have bad turnovers. They have these lapses where they don't score for 4 minutes. So it's just hard for me to trust this Villanova team, even though I do like what Willard has done this year. So I'll take Utah State as well.
Yeah, and Villanova's, and I say this, but like Villanova's also a little matchup dependent of like, if you're, again, like a team like UConn or a team like St. John's, even kind of a team like Georgetown when they got to their, you know, their better form in the Big East tournament a little bit there. It's just like, if you're big and you have a size and you can move on the perimeter and you can stay out and pressure them, that's a bad matchup for Villanova. But a lot of the teams they played in the Big East this year were not that. And, you know, Utah State's a little bit of a different animal than that necessarily, but I think, you know,
I honestly think Utah State should be the 8 and Villanova should be the 9. You know what I mean? So I just think the seeds are a little off too.
Yeah, and it's just watching Villanova all year. It's just like, hey, nice team, solid team. They are not going to jump up and knock off St. John's. You know what I mean? Even if they play them close, you don't feel it. Okay, Utah State. Wisconsin High Point. I already had a Wisconsin fan tweet at me after the Rosillo thing because I read, he was like, what 5-12s are you going to pick? And I was like, I don't think any of them. The 5s are really good. And there's a big golf this year. I was like, well, you know, let's throw out High Point. Why not? That Wisconsin team can kind of, you know, be really good and also lay an egg here and there. The guy was already mad at me. He's like, "There's no analysis in this." I was like, "Well, I already said I wasn't taking any of these games." Now we sat down to do it, and I ended up picking Northern Iowa, which I'll probably regret. But
I feel like that's a 12 that you really get. I mean, High Point and Wisconsin play the same way. They both want to score a lot of points, get a lot of possessions. I just think Wisconsin's better at it. So I mean, High Point is a fun team. I think this might be one of the most watchable games of the first weekend if both teams are making shots, which will be, you know, kind of interesting because you wouldn't think Wisconsin High Point would be that type of game. I just love that Wisconsin backcourt. I think Nick Boyd has been a star. Obviously, he's been a star, but I think like for the general consciousness, he's going to become a star in this tournament. I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Is that the guy from San Diego State?" Yes, and he's playing really well for Wisconsin, and obviously Blackwell as well. So, yeah, I like Wisconsin to win this game, but I think High Point is going to hang in there, and it should be a really fun game.
Yeah, and one huge thing to watch obviously is turnovers. Wisconsin, even though they play faster now and they get up the court now, which, like, again, the fact that we're talking about Wisconsin is like, oh yeah, Wisconsin and High Point, they both like to get up and down and run. That's an unusual thing, but you know, credit to Greg Gard for switching it up, kind of moving with the times a little bit on that front. High Point creates a ton of turnovers, and Wisconsin basically never turns the ball over, and that's a traditional thing going back decades. In the Bo Ryan years, is like super low turnovers. You know, first shot offense.
It's crazy how that works. You know what I mean? Like when these programs, like no matter who, they just kind of do what they do. You know, like what I was talking about with VCU and High Point, or with Utah State. It's interesting.
Yeah, they select for. I mean, Wisconsin has always selected for low turnover guards. It's just like no matter what pace you play, and it's been really impressive to see them pick up the pace, but also be low turnover and risk averse, and still kind of structurally underneath. They're still doing the same stuff they're doing. They just get up the floor and take shots faster now. You know what I mean? Like they're not like. It's not like they're crashing the glass or playing like Houston or something. But yeah, I like Wisconsin. To the guy who tweeted at me after the other thing, you know, chill out, man. I think Wisconsin's going to win the game. Okay? Chill out, bro. Arkansas, Hawaii. I like Arkansas a lot, and I don't care what anyone says about Darius Acuff's defense. I've seen a lot of that lately. Leave my boy alone. He's putting up like 40 a game in the SEC tournament. Like, get out of here with that. He'll learn how to defend next year when he's playing in the pros. Just let the guy cook.
Yeah, he's also got, that's what DJ Wagner's for, you know? Like, let some of these other guards come in and play defense for me while I cook up the offense and make shots out of nowhere. I mean, he's been incredible. I've seen Marbury be referenced as like he's like a Marbury that can't dunk. He can dunk, but like not at the level of Stephon Marbury, obviously. But a lot of comps like Darren Williams, Stephon Marbury, just all these little guards that were just so good kind of in the early mid-2000s, which I think is a nice, you know, kind of tip of the cap to how good he's been. This Hawaii team, I just want to shout out to my guy, Dre Bullock from Franklinton, North Carolina, a really good player. And, Franklinton's like one town over from where my parents are, and nobody knows Franklinton. Even Kevin Keats didn't even know what Franklinton was when they asked him about it. So wanted to give him some love. I think Hawaii is a fun team. I think they might scare Arkansas a little bit in this game, but Arkansas stretches the lead out and gets a nice win. And then that's a fun matchup in the second round. Arkansas, Wisconsin. Either one of those teams could give Arizona problems, Like I could talk myself into either one of those guys being able to make a run. So that'll be a good second round game.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking up Franklinton here. Because I've done a lot of driving through North Carolina. Like we go to the beach in North Carolina in summer, so
where do you go to the
off
beach?
the beaten path.
What beach? Not to blow up your spot.
Oh yeah, I don't want to dox myself. Although we're not going there this year because we're switching it up. We got some time constraints this year.
Yeah, Baldhead's got the golf cart. You take the ferry over. It's very sweet.
Yeah, no cars allowed. Yeah, it's nice. So okay, this is right by Wilson.
Yeah,
but we've stopped in Wilson a ton. On our way down there. So yeah, okay, cool. Franklinton, you learn something new every day. I mean, I feel like I'm, relatively well versed on that area, that region of North Carolina, because
Eastern North Carolina, give him some love. Whenever I saw him, I was watching Hawaii play in the championship game. They're like Dre Bullock from, Franklinton, North Carolina. I'm like, wait a second, and then I started having to go through. I'm like, this is my guy.
He snapped and pointed at the TV.
That's
that happens to me anytime someone mentions, like, it happens every now and then. It's like I'm not following all the high school players that come out of like Davenport, Iowa, where I grew up, or the Quad Cities, broader area. Mm-hmm. And every now and then you'll be like, and this, the sophomore from Moline, Illinois, and you're like, oh, awesome, cool,
that's us.
Yeah, hey, woohoo. Okay, yes, agreed. Arkansas could absolutely give Arkansas or Wisconsin could absolutely give Arizona an issue. Let's talk BYU and what the winner of Texas NC State.
I'm picking NC State to win that game.
You are.
So
what if it's Texas?
What's that?
What if it's Texas?
I know. I don't think it matters. I still take BYU.
Okay, I'm going to take BYU just because we're doing this on Monday night, and I don't know who's playing, and I have a lot less faith in Texas, honestly, kind of weirdly, than I do NC State. Mm-hmm. I feel like Wade is going to get these guys up, and I feel like Texas is kind of like they'll score, they'll get up and down, but Sean Miller is already kind of talking about learnings for next season, which is never a good sign for me,
I think he's ready to get to the portal, I mean, so is Will Wade, but I think Will Wade still has like a little something to prove, and he's got more talent. I think NC State's more talented.
I would agree with that, yeah. And Darian Williams can still run a game every now and again, and we saw him do that in last year's tournament.
And he has to hate Texas. He was at Texas Tech, like there's some reasons why he might show up.
Well, we'll take BYU. I hope, just to be. I don't care, like, really, and I wish goodwill to all fans of all teams, but I would kind of like to see DeBonsa play more than one game in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
That would be nice. So
it'd be good for the sport.
Sticking with the chalky theme, I can't. I've got the sort of stat breakdown here. I can't find a good reason to take Kennesaw State over Gonzaga. So I'm going to stick with the Zags, even though I think their ceiling might be a little. I really like that team, but I would have, it'd be nice to see them in the tournament with Braden Huff, because I think you're talking about a national title contender. Although, if you're looking for value in the bracket,
I still kind of like them. I love how undervalued they are. I haven't
heard a ton of people talking about them. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't like a post-game show. Like, I think half the panel on the ESPN show picked Michigan State to go to the Final Four.
Crazy. Greenberg had Michigan State in the championship game. I was like, is the Big Ten paying these guys off? What is happening?
Imagine if you got to the title game and it was after all these years, it was a guaranteed Big Ten title.
That'd be fun.
I mean, the conference officials will be like having a parade on like the Monday morning. They're not even going to wait till the game's over. But I point being, I don't think Gonzaga I haven't heard a lot of like, look out for Gonzaga, or they're really underseeded, or whatever the usual sort of thing is. Like, I haven't looked at the public.
Look where they're playing too. They're playing in Portland. This is like their region of the country. And, the last time we went to Indy, not to keep going back to 2021, but Gonzaga was undefeated chasing down the 76 Hoosiers. So, Mark Few probably has some unfinished business. And the one thing that I always worried about with Gonzaga was kind of like the length on the wing. And they do have that now. Like Grant Foster, Adam Miller off the bench. And I feel like they've had some of the other guys like Fogel. Like, there's some guys that have stepped up that were kind of unheralded names that you didn't really know as much, that have been playing better. So I don't know. I really like the Zags. I'm going to shock you with my pick in this region. And maybe I'm tipping my cap here a little bit. But yeah, I like Gonzaga.
Love it. All right, Miami, Missouri.
This
like
is a
Miami.
terrible draw for Miami. St. Louis against Missouri. My goodness.
It is brutal. And honestly, kind of a tough matchup, like player to player, because like Mark Mitchell is kind of the perfect guy to play against Malik Renew, and maybe kind of vice versa too. But I still like Miami. I just think they're a better team.
I do too. I just think that's a tough to like play an away game basically, but I still would take Miami too.
Yeah. Missouri was on the bubble way too long. Like they should be better than they are. They frustrate me greatly.
I also can't get that Notre Dame game out of my mind. I know they've played better since, but like they lost to Notre Dame, lest we forget.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's almost a credit to them that they were able to get into the tournament with the way they scheduled in the non-conference. Now, obviously, you're playing in the SEC, so that's like priced in. You're going to have plenty of games in the conference. But like, remember we talked about that, right? Like as they were kind of falling apart in the non-conference when they lost that game, Notre Dame's just like, why is your schedule like this? What are you doing? you can beef this up a little bit. And the one game you take is a road game at Notre. It just didn't make any sense. Purdue, the Big Ten tournament champions, like. I think my rule of thumb with Purdue, although I did see Ken Pomeroy wrote about this on his Substack, that he was kind of tipping Purdue as like a kind of, if you don't want to go all number one seeds, if you want to kind of swerve from the chalk, Purdue is a good way to go because the reason people have fallen off of them, and myself included on this, is the sort of raft of home losses they took this year at Mackey Arena, which was very uncharacteristic. They lost to Michigan at home. They lost to Michigan State at home. They lost to Iowa State ugly at home early in the year, which is a real eye opener. And they lost to did we say Illinois? They lost to Wisconsin at home. That's a really weird deal to lose 5 games, true home games at Mackey Arena. But as Ken pointed out, in almost all of those games, they had extreme shooting variance for the other team. Like, Wisconsin being a great example. They shot 18 of 34 from 3. That's 53%. That's like, you're not going to win too many games when the other team shoots 53%. And 3-point shooting is one of those things that like some teams are consistently good at defending it, but it is not a thing you can necessarily always account for. Although I do think Purdue is just the way they're kind of made up on the defensive end, has some issues with it maybe specifically, but I don't think any of that's going to matter against Queens. But Purdue is intriguing to me as well because Ken kind of convinced me on that. But then also I watch Purdue play, and I pretty much just think if Fletcher Lawyer doesn't play awesome, they're kind of where they are. Yeah,
that's my problem with that team. I feel like he's the swing factor, and I feel like a lot of times when you play some physical guards, they take him out of it, and Braden Smith can't save you every single time. What they did to Michigan was super impressive, but they also, you couldn't have drawn up a better game plan for them, and the tough twos that they were making, the entry passes and the passes in the slot that Braden Smith, like everything just kind of clicked perfectly in that game, and they scouted Michigan really well. You could tell that they had been looking at Michigan as kind of the team they would have to beat to win the Big Ten tournament. So I've fallen for the Big Ten champion before coming off the Big Ten tournament, and I've been burned. Illinois is a perfect example of that. So I'd like Purdue to get to the Sweet 16, but I'm not going to buy all the way into a national championship run.
Yeah. The way they got Mara moving around, maybe a slight blueprint for teams that are going to see Michigan.
Yeah, they brought him out to the perimeter.
They got him out away from the rim, and they got him into kind of some awkward spots where he had to go side to side. Pardon me. And it that was as shaky as he's looked in a while, probably since the Duke game. Okay. I'll take, we'll work our way back up here. I'll take Purdue over Miami. I think that's relatively straightforward. I'm going to go with you on the Zags. I feel like you're going on a Zags thing. I also just would have taken them anyway because I think BYU, particularly against that Gonzaga team, which, unlike a lot of Gonzaga teams, is really long on the wing.
Yep.
Got real dudes to throw at DeBonsa. And
multiple dudes. It used to be just like one guy, and we pray to God he could handle it. But like now I think that they're kind of equipped for it, which gives me more hope for Gonzaga. And again, in Portland, it's a good draw. They're going to have a lot of Gonzaga fans. It's going to feel like you're in the Keno Light. So I think BYU bows out at that point. And then Gonzaga, Purdue, like these are two of the best coaches and cultures in college basketball that could meet up in the Sweet 16.
I also learned during the conference tournament, did not know this before, that Mario Sansupari's grandfather wrote The Little Prince.
Dude, he had a nice moment with the cheerleaders too. He was on fire,
Yeah. Big weekend for Mario. I couldn't believe that. I'm like, oh, no kidding. Like, I love that book. That's a great book. I have a copy sitting right over here on my shelf. That's
Shout out.
actually behind this green screen.
That's the Richie Saunders tater tot story of this season, I think. Yeah. You know?
Yes, exactly.
You always get one of those.
And there's a guy everybody discovered over the weekend also that Vanderbilt has a guy named Chandler Bing. So that got a lot of chuckles. And
it's crazy because like that was a big thing
like,
at the start of the year, right? I remember when Vanderbilt started out great, everyone's like, they got a guy named Chandler Bing. And then it kind of went away, and then all of a sudden it was everywhere again.
Yeah. It's got to you got to play the hits for the folks just coming in for Champ
That's
Week,
right. That's right. Shout out.
That would have been a good blog post 20 years ago when I was blogging. Like, oh, they got a name, make a couple jokes, do a block quote, get in and out. Gonzaga, I'm going to take over BYU. A tremendous year for AJ DeBonsa. And if they're still alive next week when we have this podcast, we can talk about it more. But there'll be plenty to talk about him as we, maybe lead into the draft and get into the offseason too. But he's been tremendous. Some hiccups here and there, but the BYU problem that was not really about him in the end. The injury obviously has hurt them, and also their total lack of depth around their 3 stars has been a problem all year. Arkansas, Wisconsin. I'm just going to go ahead and mark this down as like a 93-90 Arkansas win. And if it ends up being a 93-90 Wisconsin win, then fine. Flip the coin in the other direction.
Yeah, it's a coin flip game.
That's what it's got to be, right? And maybe Acuff has 25, or maybe he has 40, or maybe Nick Boyd has 25, or maybe he has 40.
I'm gonna take Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin wins in the same coin flip game, but I think it's somehow it goes Wisconsin's way, and then John Calipari is like, I hate Wisconsin forever. He's like, I never want to see Wisconsin again.
Yeah, and that's true. He will have some old echoes of that. I mean, I like both teams a lot, and again, we've seen Wisconsin play really, really well against really, really good teams, but I just don't want Darius Acuff to go be a pro quite yet. So I'm hoping we get 2 weekends with the kid. Arizona, Utah State. That one to me feels like not the place where we're going to, and this is famous last words, but not the place where we're going to get the nervy Arizona moment.
I think they handle business. I think that's a game. That's like those are 2 West Coast teams. I think that they're going to be comfortable playing against Utah State. I think Utah State's going to be a little bit spooked by the talent of Arizona. I think they cruise to the Sweet 16.
Yep. And then we've got, in my bracket, Arizona, Arkansas. I'm going to say Arizona, and you've got Arizona, Wisconsin. What are you thinking there?
See, I think Arizona beats Arkansas, and I feel pretty good about that. But my issue is if they play Wisconsin. This is where I feel like things get wacky, and that's how my bracket – this is where the first time I kind of break the chalk. I really want Arizona to win the national championship. I really do. I think they deserve it. I think they've been the best team. I honestly thought they should be the number 1 overall seed, and I was hoping we get like a Duke-Arizona situation. But I think Wisconsin bucks the train. I think Wisconsin upsets Arizona. So that's how I go here. Yeah.
Ooh, baby, that is spicy. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That is truly breaking the chalk. Because look, like I picked Vandy, but I think we both agree Vanderbilt's like not really a 5 seed. Wisconsin kind of is a 5 seed.
Yeah.
They're a good 5 seed because all the 5 seeds are good this year. But I mean, look, like this is the thing about Wisconsin. You go up and down their wins this season and the performances they've had.
They play better against good teams. Like they play up to their competition.
It's almost uncanny. They won at Michigan, and yes, they hit a gazillion shots. Okay, you want to talk about shooting variance? Like that was the the shooting variance moment of the season. But that like we've seen them lose by 14 at Oregon. They got blown out at Ohio State. Lost at Indiana, although whether they should have lost that game is questionable. But that's an Indiana team that had maybe wasn't quite dead yet. Lost at home to USC, but they beat Purdue on the road. They beat Michigan State by 20. They beat Illinois at Illinois. It's just like I think the playing up to a certain level thing is valid here, and it's not a crazy pick at all.
And I feel like it's a backcourt game for me. You know what I mean? It's like Blackwell and Boyd versus Burries and Bradley, and I almost feel like I could see Boyd and Blackwell somehow getting the better of that duo and then winning this game. That to me is the way that my Gonzaga pick works out. It's not because they beat Arizona. I think they get knocked out by like a shocking Wisconsin upset, and then everyone's like, "What's happening with Tommy Lloyd? Why can't he win the big one?" And we have that whole thing again. I hope not. By the way, I'm doing this to reverse jinx Arizona into the Final Four. That's why I'm doing this right now.
I like it. It could work. Again, there's literally every chance next week. And this is stupid because it's not how it works, right? Like I picked Virginia to win the national title the year after they got beat by a number 1 seed. Like I know this is not how it works, but there are some teams and some programs and some coaches that you just have that little fear in the pit of your stomach.
Yeah.
Like no matter what point of the tournament.
And you do it until you don't, you know what I mean? Like you are the one that is that guy. Jay Wright was that guy until he wasn't, right? I mean,
Bill Self was that guy.
Right.
Like, Bill Self has been that guy like 2 different times in his career where Kansas people have been complaining about early tournament
Bucknell,
losses.
remember Bucknell? That was crazy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, on the other, it depends on now in your bracket who is Wisconsin going to be playing. You got Purdue, you got Gonzaga.
I got Gonzaga, and then I got Gonzaga going to the Final Four.
I could see it coming from a mile away. I am going to take Purdue. Well, am I? Yeah, I'm going to take Purdue because, well, am I? I think I'm going to take Purdue. Fine. I am just going to stick with the chalk. And I'm going to take Arizona to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. So I now have Duke, Arizona, Vanderbilt. You now have Duke, Houston, and
Gonzaga.
Okay. So this is good. We didn't end up with the same teams. We're talking with each other, but we're actually taking different teams. I was worried we were just going to like, yep, I agree with you. Okay, file it forward. Next picks. Just file every bracket we join. It's just like Eamonn and Tate's bracket.
Yeah, we just put it together. I mean, it's one of those things where like with the bracket, so many things can happen. I call them Kias. I hate know-it-alls, and like the fact that anyone tries to act like they know it all cracks me up, especially with this stuff. But
yeah. This is what I tell friends. I tell people, not friends, because they stopped asking me because I give them the same answer every year. But like you have like, quasi friends, other parents at school, whatever. They're like, oh yeah, it's a tournament. Who do you like this year or whatever? Or like family members who ask for bracket advice. It's just like, dude, I can tell you whatever.
Right.
But like nothing I say is going to happen probably. I don't know.
I had my future mother-in-law call me this afternoon. She's like, can you rank every team, like basically to do a power rankings of who could win the national championship? So I had to go through all 68 teams in order. I'm like, did I say
Claude.
St. John's yet?
Claude, please rank these teams 1 through 68 and forward it to my relative. Yeah, no. Look, I think we're going to have a chalky tournament.
Yeah.
I'm just sticking this in here before we finish the Midwest region. I think we're going to have a chalky tournament. All of the things point to it. We had one last year. We'll probably end up having the discussion during the tournament and after. Like, is this good? Is it not? Is there not enough upsets? Blah, blah, blah.
Is Cinderella dead? We'll have that story written 15 times. Yeah.
But I've also seen this tournament do insane things many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
And,
2024 NC State, 2023 the Final Four. Every team in the Final Four in 2023 made no sense other than UConn, right? I mean, we've seen it be wacky before.
Yeah, and it's just like 2023 wasn't forever ago either. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of in this era of the sport now, and we're on the trajectory to it. And I think the last 2 years have really codified it, but it wasn't forever ago. And it would be just like the NCAA tournament to have literally the entire consensus of like anything you read, everybody's saying the same stuff because that's the only rational conclusion to draw based on having watched these teams all year and looking at their numbers, looking at their performances and how they stack up relative to your average 10 seed or 12 seed or whatever. And all of that can be true right now. And next week it could be a complete mess.
Yeah. That's why we call it madness. It's the best.
Yeah. So, okay, in that spirit, we continue to the Midwest region. I do not think there will be any madness involving Michigan.
I think Michigan got the best draw of the 1 seeds, and maybe that's a hot take, but I feel pretty good about the Midwest for them. Being in Chicago with the draw they have, Iowa State is probably the team that scares you the most, but other than that, I feel like it's a pretty clear path.
Certainly the first half of their bracket. I think once you get into Iowa State and maybe Virginia, either one of those teams could give them problems because Virginia is so big.
Virginia's front court, yeah. Onyenzo and Grunlow, yep.
Yeah, and DeRitter matches up with Lendeberg really well.
Mm-hmm.
He's like Lendeberg, Boozer. He's like a guy who kind of makes sense to play against both of them.
Yeah,
and we saw like he just size wise and skill wise, he's kind of in that mix in terms of.
And you got like
profile.
Malik Thomas, Chance Mallory, Sam Lewis, like some of those guys that can just get you that bucket that you need late in the shot clock. You know, they kind of, they have some pieces there for sure.
They don't have too many like glaring flaws. You know what I mean? Personnel wise, like Virginia is sneaky good. And not even
so
that
well
sneaky
coached.
anymore.
I mean, I think Odom. I mean, you and I have talked about it, but I think for the casual fan, they haven't really understood how good he's been this year.
He's been unbelievable and put together that roster on short notice, and it's been a total success in every way. Okay, Georgia, St. Louis. I'm going St. Louis. Come on, you're going Georgia.
I'm going Georgia. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little worried about St. Louis down the stretch here. I'm taking them mostly for sentimental reasons because I think whoever plays Michigan in the second round is going to get chewed up. But
I think Georgia just overwhelms them athletically a little bit.
Could. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, look, St. Louis looked much more at like oh man, this is like a top 20. This is a really, really good team. And they peaked in terms of their KenPom ranking like February 13th. They were 24th. And they were doing stuff performance-wise on the floor in terms of field goal percentage, defense, and offense that was like historically good. And they did not continue doing this throughout the remainder of the season. They lost at Rhode Island, they lost to Dayton, they lost to Mason, and then they lost to Dayton again in the conference tournament. And defensively, some of those performances, I mean, they gave up 86 points in 63 possessions at George Mason. Like that is ugly. So I'm gonna give Robbie Avila a second game in the tournament, but this is one of those things in the bracket. If you're like actually trying to think about bracket strategy, it's like just pick whoever you want to win because
it's a toss up.
Michigan's winning by 25 the next game anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay, Texas Tech, Akron.
Give me Texas Tech.
Okay, you don't have a sneaky thought for Akron?
I just think Akron can cover that game. They've never won a tournament game. I don't think it happens this time around. Grant McCaslin's too good. You know, like that to me. I just really, looking at what's happening in Tampa there, I just think that even without JT Toppin, and I know they've been trending in the wrong direction, Christian Anderson had the groin injury, I think they'll be back better than people suspect, maybe a little bit underrated at this point. So I like Texas Tech a lot.
Yeah, thankfully Christian Anderson is going to play after slipping on that absolutely ridiculous glass court at the Big 12 tournament.
I can't believe they got away with that.
We had a lot of jokes. Like I made a lot of jokes about it in the newsletter over the weekend on each of the Bubble Watch updates, whatever. Like, look how dumb this thing is. I hate looking at it. It looks like they're playing in Sin City. You know, when it was like Cincinnati versus Texas Tech or whatever the game was like red and black jerseys. And the court is like all black. And then they've got like some little red highlights and graphics in it.
And they like dunk and it like has like explosions on the court. Yeah. I was like, what is happening?
This is literally like jangling keys for people who can't have an attention span. Like just sit there and watch the game on the wood court. And then it was all fun and games and jokes and like, this thing looks dumb, whatever. And then Anderson slips. And it's just like, okay, if this court cost me watching Christian Anderson in the NCAA tournament, I am actually going to be really
pissed. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
also Kansas State. Someone in Kansas State was getting a migraine from the light. And as someone who gets migraines from light, I'm like, man, that would be my nightmare. Like if I was covering that game.
Who wants to play on a giant TV? Like, what are we doing? Like, it would annoy me too. It's like I get bored, or not bored. I get like, I gotta look away from my screen for a little while. Like, sitting at the computer all day. It's just like, I don't want that under my feet while I'm trying to play basketball, especially if it's slippery. What are we doing? Anyway, okay. Yeah. Christian Anderson's going to play. That's good. Texas Tech probably going to beat Akron. Alabama Hofstra. Okay, Alabama. Some news out of Tuscaloosa and what has been a news-filled season for Alabama. Oh, what are we doing, bud?
Yeah. I mean, Aiden Holloway, in case you missed it, it was a felony possession charge, pound of marijuana, apparently. It's going to be handled internally. I mean, obviously, there's going to be the criminal part of it, but internally,
it's going to be handled externally as well.
It will be handled in multiple facets here. And then apparently, he's off the team. I guess is the last thing I saw. So
I think Oates said they're preparing not to play with him, but he's still our guy.
Okay.
So they're preparing this weekend that they won't have.
It's kind of a tough spot for Nate Oates because like he's been so obviously there's the Brandon Miller, that whole story, and everyone talked about how light he was. He's kind of like got to go the other way just to prove a point, but you don't want to do that with someone like Aiden Holloway who you actually need and who's been a great piece for them. So, man, tough spot for Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama has moved him off of campus, it announced, while the investigation plays out. Obviously, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, so we'll see what goes with that. But I did see some people being like, "Oh, we're arresting college kids for having weed now. Like, what are we doing?" It's just like, well, no, it's a pound.
Yeah.
Type into your Google if you put on safe search or incognito mode if you're worried about it. But just that's a ton. Of marijuana. That is not like the guy's got
that's
a bag
not like
of marijuana.
recreational use.
No,
there's something
that's
else
like
going on. Yeah,
or he just bought in bulk because he didn't want to have to be doing it all the time, which
that's true. Yeah,
if you're a basketball player, it might make sense. You know what I mean? But like, you still can't have that much. That's illegal in even states where marijuana is super illegal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can buy it at the store. You cannot have that much. So yeah, that's a blow for Alabama. Hofstra is an interesting team for them. In terms
they
of
slow
matchup.
it down. Speedy Claxton.
I just don't think they can speed it. It's like slow it down against Alabama. I still think the pace will probably play out probably in the 73 to 74 possession range, which is probably going to be enough for Alabama. But this is an interesting one. I don't want to over index the sort of chaos or whatever. So I feel like anytime you start talking about that stuff, teams just come out and play well anyway. But just losing that player specifically for them is obviously just a big blow in and of itself. So I'll get them past Hofstra, but that might be the end of the road for me with Alabama. Tennessee and the winner of Miami, Ohio, SMU. I'm going to guess that's probably SMU. RIP Miami. It was an amazing run. And man, Tennessee, I don't have not a strong opinion, but I don't have like a formed take, and it's like March 17th or whatever. I still don't have here's what Tennessee is and how I feel about them. And I've thought about it. I'm kind of like, they're pretty good, kind of flawed, good guard play, like Eamonn.
Sometimes
your mileage might vary. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It depends on the day with that. Yeah, I'm going to take SMU to beat Miami, Ohio, and I'm going to take them to beat Tennessee in the first round. So I'm going to go SMU into the second round.
I like that.
I like the guards of SMU.
Whatever. Yeah, they're fun. I'm going to follow you on that just for a little bit of if it happens, we can text each other and be like, okay. Virginia, the Stangs, baby. Virginia, Wright State. I'm really high on this Virginia team. I'm going to probably do something, I don't know if silly is the right word, but I have them through to the Sweet 16 pretty easily.
Yep, I got Virginia too. I think Wright State's going to be a tougher game than we think. It might be a little bit closer and a little angsty for Virginia fans, but I think they get by Wright State. If it goes how we projected, I think they get SMU, and that's a matchup ACC team that they're familiar with, which is kind of interesting. But I think Virginia, it's a nice path for them to get to the Sweet 16.
100%.
They deserve it this year too. Just give them credit.
Kentucky, Santa Clara.
Give me Santa Clara all day.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I think people were a little too down on Kentucky now after they kind of turned things around. But the fundamental flaws, despite the improvements they made to turn their season around, are still in evidence. You're still seeing them. And I feel like this game is kind of the perfect, like, a lot of Kentucky fans are gonna be like, what the hell is a Santa Clara? Like, these guys can't play with us. And then they'll get on the court with them and be like, oh, yeah, actually, this is a pretty good.
Herb Sendek, really good coach. Alan Graves, a draft, potential draft guy. It just feels like one of those games where, like, Graves has a great game, and then Kentucky fans are like, let's get this guy to Kentucky. And then he ends up playing for Kentucky next year. You know what I mean? That's my read on this game.
Hey, man, I can believe it. That I don't know that Kentucky's transfer and NIL strategy was all that much more thought out than that last year. So it's believable. Iowa State, Tennessee State. Iowa State to me is if you wanted to make a slightly extended list of national title contenders, they're on that list. Absolutely. Just one of the, participants in one of the greatest 5-minute stretches of college basketball I think I've ever seen against Arizona in the Big 12 tournament. Just sublime stuff, and a very good sort of package highlight reel for why this Iowa State team, is different from what they were early in TJ's tenure there. They can score it like crazy now too. And then they still have kind of maintained their level defensively and brought up the other side of it. And Momcilovic is obviously huge with that, but they're good across the board offensively. And I really I'm high on Iowa State.
Yeah, Lipsy, Jefferson, Momcilovic, right? I mean, they have all the pieces. Defensively, they're going to be locked in. I think that they're playing some of their best basketball right now. It's kind of trended back in the right direction, which makes you feel even better about this team. Apologies to Nolan Smith. I'd take Iowa State, and then I would take Iowa State to take out Santa Clara. And then for me, and I think for you too, we'd have Virginia, Iowa State in the Sweet 16, which would be a really fun game against two really good coaches.
It would, and that's a tricky one for me. Okay, I'm going to take Texas Tech in that Alabama game.
Me too. I think McCaslin gets to the Sweet 16 without Toppin, and that's actually like a great story, you know? And
another validation of the work he's doing there. And they haven't really declined without Toppin, which is crazy to say, but you know they've mostly held the line.
It just took their champion. Like I feel like if Toppin was healthy, you could talk me. Obviously, Texas Tech wouldn't be a 5 seed; they'd probably be a 3 seed, and then I would be talking myself into Texas Tech maybe going to the Final Four. Like that's how much I like that team. So
yeah,
shout out to them.
Without him, obviously, it's hard to see them getting past Michigan.
Yeah,
which is
so I would take Michigan to the Elite Eight.
We got Michigan in the Elite Eight, and then I'm really torn on the Virginia Iowa State thing. I think I'm going to go with Iowa State.
I'm going to go with Iowa State as well.
Pardon me. I just watched a lot of Virginia this year, and have obviously interviewed Ryan for the podcast, and I really have I have a few buddies who are Virginia fans living where I live, but I just think as much as I like that team, and as much as I think they could be about as good a matchup, if not even slightly better matchup in some ways for Michigan than Iowa State is.
It's a lot for Buchanan to do against that Michigan front line. Blake Buchanan, and shout out to Coeur d'Alene. I know he's a good player, but he's going to have all he wants and more from Mara and Morez Johnson.
Yeah, and that's why I'll be putting Michigan, pardon me, not Michigan State. I don't want them to get mad about that. In the Final Four.
Yeah, I got Michigan as
Wolverines.
Well. Yeah,
Wolverines.
My 2 1 seeds are Michigan and Duke. Yep.
Yeah, I've got Duke, Arizona, Michigan, and then Vanderbilt, which actually, now that I think about it, kind of is these are the 3 teams that we've said all year are the cut above national title teams. Mm-hmm. And then an off number 1 seed pick that's kind of a fun, let's throw a little something different into the mix. And now we just have to decide who's going to win. So what's your 4 real quick?
Yeah, my 4, Duke in the East, Houston in the South, Michigan in the Midwest, and then Gonzaga in the West.
All right. So I've got Arizona, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast is getting long, so I'm not going to do a full breakdown. We'll talk about it if the game actually happens.
Right.
I'm just going to say I'm going to take Arizona by 2 points or whatever. Not that it matters for the Final 4 games. And then Duke, Vandy. Duke. The dream is dead at that point. Vanderbilt did what they needed to do.
Yeah. They won the regional. Coach K said if you win the regional, you win a championship. So there you go.
He did say that, didn't he?
Yeah. After he lost to Carolina, that was his.
Good for a few of those quotes. I didn't reach out to you when Shire was kind of getting annoyed about the tip times of the ACC tournament, but I saw a lot of Carolina fans giving him a hard time.
My mom's got a great nickname for him. She calls him John Cryer, and
oh god,
I love it. It's good.
That's the mom nickname for that works.
That's an 82 UNC grad talking about the Duke coach. She's like, John 100%. Cryer's at it again. And I think it works.
Okay, so what are you doing in your Final 4?
Yeah, Gonzaga. Sorry, I almost called him Gonzaga because I've had so many people today say it to me that it's I know it's the Zags. Shout out to Spokane, Washington. Yeah, they all say Gonzaga, and they've broken my brain. And then I say Gonzaga, and then they don't change. So I'm like I said, I'm in a tough spot now. But Gonzaga, Michigan, Graham Ike. If they had Braden Huff, I would talk myself into maybe Gonzaga making some magic happen, but I'm going to go with Michigan. I think Michigan wins that game. They're the better team, better front court. I think Michigan gets the title game. And then Houston-Duke, it's a repeat of last year in the Final Four. I think Duke wins that game. They get to get back against Houston. So I'll take Duke-Michigan in the national championship game. Pretty chalky, pretty boring. But I think the Big Ten gets it done finally. Michigan wins a national championship. So I'm going to take the Wolverines over Duke.
Okay, so we've got Tate down for a Michigan national title. I am going to pick.
I want Arizona, like I really do. I can't pick them. Every time I pick them, they lose. So, it's kind of like Illinois. I don't pick Illinois anymore either because they lose when I pick them.
This is going to be a lot of dead air. Corey just have to cut this all out. 30 minutes later, we'll come back and he can. No, I'm joking. Yeah, man. Okay, fine. I'll take Arizona. No.
Is it Duke, Arizona, right? That's your championship?
Yes, Duke, Arizona.
Then Duke is winning. I
think so, right?
Yeah, Duke's winning. If it's Duke, Arizona, I would take Duke. Unfortunately, that's like 2001. Like, granted, I think Arizona is a better team, but like somehow when that game is played, I just feel like Duke wins that game. And the only reason I have Michigan beating Duke is because they played already and Michigan got the raw end of that deal, and I like the give back game, But any other team facing Duke in the title game, if it was Duke Gonzaga, if it was Duke Houston, whatever it is, or I guess it could be Duke Houston, but Duke whoever, I would probably take Duke.
Am I really going to pick a team that does not have their starting guard? Like
I just think the Caden Boozer it's fine, Like I was telling you, I actually think it works a little. Like early in that game against Virginia, like Cam Boozer got Caden Boozer a wide open three and like got him into the flow of the game, and he ended up having 14 points in the first half, and I'm like, that's some twin shit, Like they have this weird, and they've never lost. That's my problem. Like I would pick Duke, but like it would be sacrilegious for me to do that, especially when I feel like it's on the heels of happening, and that's why I'm taking Michigan. But it does feel a little bit inevitable at this point. Shire's gone up a level every single year.
He really has. And this is he's at a new peak this year. All right, man, fine. I'm taking Duke. Go Blue Devils, baby. That's what we say around here.
Hey,
right,
2010 in Indy they won. 2015 in Indy they won. So it would be kind of the thing.
That's true. Yep. Last time I covered a Final Four there, that was a Duke title. Incredibly,
right. Backdoored their way into a title with an undefeated Kentucky team that got knocked out by Wisconsin, which, Wisconsin's a master of chaos sometimes.
Wisconsin went through like a 7-minute stretch in the second half of the Duke game where they just got put in Coach K ref jail, and they'll never let it go. And I wouldn't either, honestly. If that was my team that lost the national title that way, You could see it happening too. I was sitting across the court covering the game, and you could just see Coach K starting to do the Coach K thing of just like getting on them. Yeah. And all of a sudden the whistles start happening, and it's just like,
it hasn't left. Like if you watch, talk to Virginia fans after the ACC championship game. I had my Virginia friends text me. They're like, why do the officials go to Shire after they make every call against Duke to explain it to him? I'm like, because he's been trained, he knows how to work it perfectly.
The master has become, the apprentice has become the master. Yeah. There was one where they were like waiting an extended period of time for Duke to finish their like iPad replay review
against Carolina.
Just sort of like,
they did. They were like, they have 15 seconds. I'm like, I've never seen them have 15 seconds to look at the replay and then make a decision.
Shire's like over there studying the tape, and then I'm like telling them to wait for him or whatever. Just like,
he's doing the finger. He's like 1 second.
1 second, guys.
How's he getting away with this?
Let's whistle and get the ball in play. Anyway, okay, that's what I've got. I got Duke over Arizona in the title game. I've got Michigan in the Final Four. I've got Vanderbilt in the Final Four. And now I kind of, much like when the bracket is announced, no one cares about the bowl team anymore. After I fill out my bracket, I kind of don't care that much about it anymore.
Yeah,
I just want to see some good basketball and see what happens. And if my wife beats me, if my friends beat me, and they make fun of me because I'm supposed to be some college basketball expert, I tell them the same thing I tell them every year. I have no clue what's going to happen. I don't try to pretend.
And neither do you. You know what I mean?
Wash over me.
Yeah, that's the thing. The more you know, the less you know. That's really how it works in the game of college basketball, which is why it's beautiful. Like, I remember in college, like some of the guys, like even going to the tournament. I remember the 2014 tournament. I was like talking to some of the guys on the team, and I'm like, oh, how do you guys feel about the matchup? They're like, oh, we're about to smoke them. Loss. You know what I mean? Like, it's like even the players have no clue what's going to happen, so.
Yeah, and everybody thinks they're going to win, UMBC and Howard both will think they're going to beat Michigan because that's what you have to think. But also, there's like I don't know, man. I think I just want to put this on tape right now. If the tournament does weird stuff. It used to do more weird stuff more regularly, but it still does weird stuff. And it would amuse me to no end if this year, after everybody said, like, from last year's tournament all the way through to this season and all the stuff we've talked about with all these teams all year long and how good the top of the sport is now and yada, 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 and how chalky this field is going to be, and pick chalk if you want to win your pool, blah, blah, blah. It would amuse me to no end if we had like a 3 seed, a 7 seed, the 5 seed, and a
UCLA
4 seed
goes to the Final Four as a 7.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that would be great.
That would be, and honestly, that's the one. This is maybe the one instance in which I would be happy. Usually, you want the best teams in the sport at the Final Four, and you get your upsets in the mix and get a couple of fun Sweet 16 stories. But then you want to see Duke play Michigan or Arizona or whatever. But that would honestly just like, I'd be chuckling about that if I'm in Indianapolis in a couple weeks, and it's, you know, like, let's say, well, Vanderbilt, the team that I picked, but also, yeah, like Louisville or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, Louisville's here. Like, how did that happen? Like, where do we get like Miami, like Kentucky or something? Like, imagine if Kentucky makes the Final Four.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Like, I would just cackle at every press conference, every radio head. It'd be the funniest thing of all time.
Todd Golden's nightmare.
They've been hot garbage for most of the year. And yeah, Todd Golden would be mad, and the whole thing would be great. I'm kind of rooting for chaos this year, even though I usually like it when the best teams play, but we'll see how it goes. Anything else you got to get off your chest before we wrap it?
I feel good. The last thing is just Nebraska win a game. I just really want Nebraska. I love history happening, so I want Nebraska to win a game. I'm over that.
They deserve it.
Point. Yeah, so give it to them. Come on,
Hoiberg,
get a win. Beat Troy.
We need it. They need it. We need it. We don't have to say it about them anymore. And they've been good enough this year to get it. Okay. That's our bracket. If you have huge problems with who I picked, I would strongly encourage you to just go for a walk. Like make yourself have a beer, have whatever have a Mountain Dew, whatever your beverage of choice is. Just like take a deep breath, and it's just a bracket. I promise you, it's going to be all right. And if you like my bracket, or you're a Vanderbilt fan and you love me, then please let me know.
Please reach out. Share your thoughts. Yeah.
Get in touch. Okay. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. That's our final podcast pre-tournament. The next time you talk to us, we'll have a Sweet 16, or you hear from us anyway, and we talk to you. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks as ever to our producer, Corey, who puts it all together. Thanks to Trilly and everybody over at Basket Under Review. Thank you, Tate.
Of course.
And we'll talk to everybody next week. Bye-bye.